Chapter 4820. How's the research going? Lu Ming asked. Now, the blacksmiths of the celestial race and the quasi-saint race are working together. However, it's not easy to completely attach the blue firestone to the divine weapon without damaging the divine weapon. It can be removed at any time, and it has good stability. I estimate that it will take a few months. Song Qiong said. I can join and help with the research. Dandan exclaimed. Dandan is a genius of the world's divine tortoise tribe. He has great talent in rune formation Dao. Perhaps he can help. Lu Ming introduced. I've heard of the world's divine tortoise tribe. With your help, we might be able to research it earlier. Song Qiong looked at Dandan with a smile and praised Dandan without batting an eyelid. Dandan grinned from ear to ear. Song Qiong was becoming more and more pleasing to his eyes. Song Qiong immediately led the way to the center of the ancient city. The ancient city was huge. There were continuous mountain ranges and vast lakes in the ancient city. It was like a world within a city. Soon, they arrived near a huge mountain peak. Huge mines had been excavated on the mountain. Blue rays of light filled the air. Everyone walked in and found that there were indeed large amounts of blue firestones in the mountain. Many people were researching in a spacious underground space. Exterminating Lord of Heaven of 100 battles. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. Here he met two old acquaintances. They were the two strongest Lord of Heaven of the heavenly human tribe. Exterminating Lord of Heaven and Lord of Heaven of 100 battles. Lu Ming. Exterminating Lord of Heaven and Lord of Heaven of 100 battles also noticed Lu Ming. Cold rays of light shot out from their eyes. It's a pity that these two guys didn't die in the hands of the extreme Een corpse. Dandan sighed helplessly. Even if you die, we won't die. The Lord of Heaven of Extermination sneered. Is that so? Do you believe that I won't smash your dog head? Dandan shouted. A mere 6th-tier divine master. You dog, you overestimate yourself. I can suppress you with a single finger. The heavenly monarch of 100 battles replied. What did you say? Dandan was furious. Both sides were filled with a cold aura. Powerful auras exploded and collided, causing the entire underground space to buzz and tremble. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with killing intent. Did he really not mind fighting here? Kill the Lord of Heaven the Exterminator and the Lord of Heaven the 100 battles? Weaken the strength of the heavenly human tribe. Himself, Bone Devil, Qiu, Xian Yanqing? Including Autumn Moon, there were a total of 5 Lord of Heaven level existences, while the other side only had 2. You want to kill him? It was not a difficult task. But now? Flickering? A few figures? Appearing behind the Lord of Heaven the Exterminator and the Lord of Heaven the 100 battles. Astonishing auras filled the air. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. The two burly figures were filled with all kinds of auras, but they were extremely terrifying. They were 2 primitive divine puppets with the combat power of the Lord of Heaven. There were also 2 heavenly human elders in golden armor. Their auras were astonishing. They were also the Lord of Heaven. The heavenly human tribe originally had 9 such old and powerful Lord of Heaven. The battle outside the Heaven Destroyer's base? Lu Ming killed 3 of them? There were 6 left. The other side suddenly had 4 Lord of Heaven level experts. Including the Lord of Heaven the Exterminator and the Lord of Heaven the 100 battles, there were 6 Lord of Heaven level experts. The atmosphere between the two sides was tense. Swords were drawn and bows were drawn. It seemed like a battle would break out at any moment. Everyone, please calm down. We agreed to work together earlier. Moreover, our common enemy right now is the absolute Een corpses and the living beings of the Forbidden Grounds. If we kill each other, it will only weaken our strength. Song Qiong quickly came out to smooth things over. Since young Master Song Qiong said so, let's forget about today. It won't be too late to take their lives after the trip to Purple Heaven Grotto Heaven. The Lord of Heaven the Exterminator sneered. He didn't really want to let Lu Ming and the others go. If he was confident, even if Song Qiong mediated, he would still kill Lu Ming completely. It was just that he wasn't confident. They didn't know that Lu Ming had 5 people with the same combat power as the Lord of Heaven. He only knew that Lu Ming, Bone Demon, Qiu, and Xian Yanqing were all at the same level as the Lord of Heaven. He didn't know about Autumn Moon's combat power. Most importantly, he was afraid of Lu Ming. In the battle outside the Heaven Destroyer base, Lu Ming had killed 3 of the Lord of Heaven's strongest opponents, which made him feel a lingering fear. Immortal later speculated that Lu Ming couldn't maintain that kind of combat power all the time. He even speculated that Lu Ming used some kind of secret treasure and couldn't use it again after using it once. Because after that battle, Lu Ming was too low-key. If he really had that kind of combat power, he would probably counterattack the heavenly human tribe. However, Lu Ming didn't. But speculations were just speculations. No one could be sure. What if Lu Ming still had that kind of combat power? It was better to be safe than sorry. Therefore, the Lord of Heaven took the opportunity to give Song Qiong some face. "Humph, we still don't know who will kill who," Dandan replied. Lu Ming didn't say anything. To be honest, he had the same idea as the Lord of Heaven. If he was confident, he would also kill the Lord of Heaven and the others. However, he wasn't confident. He knew himself well. He couldn't control that kind of bloodstain at all. In terms of combat power, he was only equivalent to the Lord of Heaven. Thank you for giving me face." Song Qiong smiled and continued to smooth things over, taking over this matter. In this underground space, many refining masters were studying how to stably attach blue firestones to divine weapons. Dandan watched for a while and also joined in. Dandan's current array formation skills were indeed superb. After watching for a while, he pointed out a few key points, which made the refining masters overjoyed and made a major breakthrough. Song Qiong and the others were surprised and also overjoyed. With Dandan's participation, it wouldn't take long for the research to be completed. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Wan Shen, and the others watched for a while and collected some blue firestones to put in their storage rings. Then, they left and returned to the city wall. Outside the city wall, there was still a large number of extreme Yin corpses wandering around. As time passed, the number of extreme Yin corpses outside increased. Not long after, another group of quasi-saint tribe arrived and rushed towards the ancient city. A portion of the quasi-saint tribe in the ancient city went out to receive them. However, as the number of extreme Yin corpses around the ancient city increased, it became more and more difficult to rush into the ancient city. Although this group of quasi-saint tribe finally rushed into the ancient city, it was still very dangerous and a few of them even died halfway. It seems that it will be difficult to come in later. Spread the news and tell the others not to continue coming here. Find a place to hide and wait for us to kill our way out. Song Qiong instructed. At the same time, the heavenly human tribe also sent out a message, asking the heavenly human tribe to find a place to hide and not come here. Chapter 48:21. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. With the addition of Dandan, the research on stabilizing the blue firestone on the divine weapon was greatly accelerated. Originally, it was estimated that it would take a few months, but soon, news spread that it would be completed in a few days at most. There were 2 main difficulties in attaching the blue firestone to the divine weapon. One was stability. For example, he could casually grind the blue firestone into powder or melt it into liquid and smear it on the divine weapon. This was very unstable. When he was fighting with the absolute Yin corpse, the blue firestone that was smeared on the divine weapon would be scraped off when he slashed at the absolute Yin corpse. That way, it would be useless after a few moves. The first problem was to use a rune formation to firmly attach the blue firestone to the divine weapon so that it would not be scraped off easily. That was the first difficulty. The second difficulty was that after attaching the blue firestone to the divine weapon, it had to be easily removed and not be permanently attached to the divine weapon. For example, if it was attached to a source-grade divine weapon and couldn't be removed, then the source-grade divine weapon's power would be greatly affected. It would greatly reduce the value of the source-grade divine weapon. That was not worth it. These 2 difficulties were related to the rune formation. With the addition of Dandan, they were quickly solved. In a few more days, they would be able to complete the task. At that time, everyone would have blue firestones on their weapons and they would be able to kill their way out, defeat the extreme Yin corpses, and search for treasures. On the city wall, Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and the others were strolling on the city wall. On the city wall? These runes were the remnants of a formation. Although a very long time had passed, it was still a long time ago. There were still a few that could be used. However, Heavenly Human Tribe or Quasi-Saint Tribe, they did not activate or use these formations because there was no need. The blue firestone itself was enough to deter the extreme Yin corpses from approaching. There was no need to activate the formations. Outside the city wall? Suddenly, there was a shocking roar. Following this roar, the scattered extreme Yin corpses outside the city wall, they actually became orderly, slowly retreating, gathering together, surrounding the ancient city. Above the extreme Yin corpses, a tall figure stood there. Black chi spread out from his body, emitting a terrifying aura. These extreme Yin corpses are so terrifying. Lu Ming's pupils shrank slightly. It is indeed terrifying. This silver-eyed Yin corpse's battle prowess surpasses the strongest Lord of Heaven? It already possesses some intelligence. Was Firmament coming? He explained. An absolute Yin corpse whose battle prowess surpasses the strongest Lord of Heaven. The hearts of Lu Ming and the rest trembled. Inside the absolute Yin corpse? There was actually such a terrifying existence. What if he didn't have the blue firestone? Encountering an extreme Yin corpse of this level would only result in death. The absolute Yin corpse that was comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven was already very terrifying. His body was indestructible and invulnerable. Even if Lu Ming attacked with all his might and activated the War God Spear, he could only barely leave a scratch on his body. One could imagine how terrifying the extreme Yin corpse, whose battle prowess was even stronger than the Lord of Heaven, was. Even if Lu Ming attacked with all his strength, he might not be able to break through its defense. Suddenly, an earth-shattering roar came from another direction. Lu Ming and the others noticed that there was another extreme Yin corpse floating in the air in that direction. Its aura was terrifying. Similarly, this extreme Yin corpse's eyes were also black with a tinge of silver. It was another silver-eyed Yin corpse. At this moment, Firmament's face also turned serious. Previously, there was only one silver-eyed Yin corpse around the ancient city. I never thought that there would be a second one. I hope that there won't be more. Firmament path. But before Firmament could finish his words, another terrifying roar came from another direction. A third silver-eyed Yin corpse had appeared. The hearts of Lu Ming, Song Qiong, and the rest sank. 3 silver-eyed Yin corpses, their battle prowess was too terrifying. If not for the ancient city, they would be in danger. Now we can only rely on the blue firestone. Firmament said with a serious face. But their hearts were heavy. They did not know if the blue firestone on the divine weapon could deal with the silver-eyed Yin corpse. After all, the silver-eyed Yin corpse's battle prowess was too strong. If they were hit, they would be the first to die. Fortunately, the fourth extreme Yin corpse did not appear. There were only 3 of them, standing in 3 different directions of the ancient city, eyeing them covetously. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Dandan and the others finally succeeded in refining the divine weapons. Everyone went to the blue firestone mine in batches and began to attach liquid blue firestone to their divine weapons. Everyone attached at least 2 divine weapons to their divine weapons as a precaution. If one of the divine weapons was damaged, they would still have a weapon to use. There were a total of 4,000 people in the ancient city. It took only 2 days for everyone to attach a layer of blue firestone to their divine weapons. Lu Ming also attached a layer of blue firestone to the tip of the Battle God Spear. The Battle God Spear looked blue as if it was made of blue gemstones. Lu Ming also attached a layer of blue firestone to another origin-grade divine weapon as a backup. Then, everyone from the Heavenly Human Tribe and the Quasi-Saint Tribe stood on the city wall and looked into the distance. Everyone, what should we do next? Song Qiong looked at Lu Ming and the Lord of Heaven. There are a total of 3 silver-eyed Yin corpses outside the city, and there are 3 of us. I think it's fair for each of us to deal with one of them. The corners of the Heavenly Lord of Extermination's lips curled into a cold smile as he glanced at Lu Ming and the rest. This was obviously intentional. Although there were 3 parties here, Lu Ming and the others were too few. Even with Chiu, there were only 10 of them. It was very dangerous to deal with one silver-eyed Yin corpse. They wanted to use the power of the extreme Yin corpse to get rid of Lu Ming and the others. I agree. We have agreed to cooperate, so we have to contribute. We can't share the burden for them, right? That's right. It's best for 3 parties to attack from 3 directions. The Lord of Heaven and the others from the heavenly human tribe said. This, Firmament revealed a hesitant expression. He looked at Lu Ming and the group, seemingly in a difficult position. The Lord of Heaven's suggestion was reasonable, so he couldn't speak for Lu Ming and the others. Okay, we agree. Lu Ming replied. It was better to rely on oneself than to rely on mountains or water. It was impossible to rely on others. They could only take a gamble. If it really didn't work, they could just return to the ancient city. All right, since that's the case, let's begin. Fight. Song Qiong shouted and his aura erupted. The red mark between his eyebrows emitted an astonishingly high temperature. A bright blue battle sword appeared in his hand, and a fiery red battle armor appeared on his body, covering his entire body within. Lu Ming could see that the battle sword and the battle armor were extraordinary. They were definitely not ordinary silver-level divine weapons. They were most likely top silver-level divine weapons. The Quasi-Saint tribe was unfathomable and had an incomparably deep foundation. It wasn't strange for Song Qiong to have 2 top silver-level divine weapons. Chapter 48-22. With Song Qiong's talent and cultivation at the 9th level of the Divine Master Realm, coupled with 2 top-notch source-grade divine weapons, his combat strength was absolutely astonishing. Even the strongest experts at the level of the Lord of Heaven might not be his match. Just like Yi Qiuxian. When they attacked the Heaven Exterminating Army's base, Yi Qiuxian also had 2 top-notch source-level divine weapons, one for offense and one for defense. His combat power was very shocking. At that time, when Lu Ming fought with Yi Qiuxian, he was at a disadvantage in the beginning. It was best to rely on Qiu to defeat the opponent. The main reason was that Lu Ming lacked a defensive source-grade divine weapon. In terms of defense, he was inferior to the opponent and could not fully display his strength. Unfortunately, there were too few defensive source-grade divine weapons. It was extremely difficult to obtain one, not to mention a top-notch defensive source-grade divine weapon. Kill! Song Qiong shouted and took the lead to rush out of the ancient city. The other experts of the Quasi-Saint tribe also followed closely behind Song Qiong. A few powerful experts stood on both sides of Song Qiong to protect him. With Song Qiong's combat strength, he was not afraid of the other extreme Yin corpses, but he was afraid of the silver-eyed Yin corpse. More than 2,000 experts of the Quasi-Saint tribe gathered together and rushed out like a sharp sword. The silver-eyed Yin corpse in this direction was emitting a dense black gas. A violent roar came from his mouth. Terrifying sound waves came from his mouth and swept out in all directions, causing the sky and earth to tremble. It seemed to be a command. When the other extreme Yin corpses heard it, they also roared. Like a tide, they rushed toward the Quasi-Saint tribe. The speed of both sides was very fast. In the blink of an eye, they collided. Kill! The divine weapons of the Quasi-Saint tribe? They were all covered with blue firestones and various weapons that attacked the extreme Yin corpses. Those extreme Yin corpses? Just like before? They only knew how to attack and did not care about defense. They were instantly hit. As if they were chopping vegetables? The Quasi-Saint tribe? They directly broke the defense of the extreme Yin corpses? Many of the extreme Yin corpses were split in half? Blue flames? Covering the extreme Yin corpses? The extreme Yin corpses let out painful roars. It's effective, die. The people of the Quasi-Saint race were overjoyed when they saw that the divine weapons with blue firestones were effective. Their morale increased greatly. What followed was a storm-like attack. A large number of extreme Yin corpses? It was blasted into smithereens. Firmament? He also faced an extreme Yin corpse. This extreme Yin corpse had battle prowess comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven. It was extremely terrifying. Invulnerable. Impervious to fire and water, indestructible. Song Cheong slashed out and clashed with the Extreme Een Corpse's claws. With a clang, the Extreme Een Corpse's claws were cut off. Furthermore, the sword did not stop as it continued to slash at the opponent. The battle sword chopped down on the head of the Extreme Een Corpse and actually chopped off half of its head. Moreover, strands of blue flames spread down from its head, enveloping its entire upper body. Sizzling sounds came from the other party's body, and white smoke rose from it. Firmament seized the opportunity and attacked consecutively. Dense sword lights cut the other party into pieces. The other people from the Quasi-Sage tribe were in a similar situation. They relied on their divine weapons with blue firestones to completely crush the Extreme Een Corpse. Finally, the silver-eyed Extreme Een Corpse let out an angry roar and charged toward Firmament and the others like a bolt of lightning. However, there was a strong man beside Firmament who had not made a move previously. At this moment, his body was like a sharp sword as he flew toward the silver-eyed Extreme Een Corpse. Wherever his body passed, the space exploded and burst out with terrifying energy. Boom! The strong man from the heavenly human tribe collided with the silver-eyed Extreme Een Corpse, and a shocking explosion erupted. Then, the silver-eyed Extreme Een Corpse's burly figure was seen retreating. A deep wound appeared on its body, and blue flames kept flickering around the wound. What terrifying battle prowess! This battle prowess surpasses that of the strongest Lord of Heaven. The hearts of Lu Ming and the rest trembled. The Quasi-Sage tribe was indeed incredible and unfathomable. They actually had an expert with such battle prowess. This strong man from the Quasi-Sage tribe could contend with the silver-eyed Extreme Een Corpse even without the blue firestone. This battle prowess was definitely not weaker than Gu Changfeng. There was no suspense. Lu Ming and the others knew that there was no suspense in the battle between the Quasi-Sage tribe and the Extreme Een Corpse. The strength of the strong man from the Quasi-Sage tribe was not weaker than the silver-eyed Extreme Een Corpse. Coupled with the divine weapon attached to the blue firestone, his strength was completely above the silver-eyed Extreme Een Corpse. It was only a matter of time before they defeated the silver-eyed Extreme Een Corpse. Why are you still not making a move? Are you waiting for us to defeat the Extreme Een Corpse so that you can take advantage of us? You don't want to do anything, right? At this moment, the Extermination Lord of Heaven looked at Lu Ming and the others and ridiculed them. Aren't you also not making a move? Dandan retorted. We are about to make a move. We are just afraid that you will follow us and take advantage of us. That's why we didn't make a move. The Extermination Lord of Heaven sneered. Don't worry, we won't take advantage of you. Let's go. Lu Ming said. After that he stepped out and headed in another direction. Hee, I hope you can make it out smoothly. The Extermination Lord of Heaven said hypocritically. Then he led the heavenly human tribe and rushed out of the ancient city. They charged in the direction of the other silver-eyed Extreme Een Corpse. The silver-eyed Extreme Een Corpse roared and ordered the other Extreme Een Corpses to charge at the heavenly human tribe. Both sides engaged in a fierce battle. With our strength, we must have a plan to deal with the silver-eyed Extreme Een Corpse. Let's do this later. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to Xian Yanqing, Chiu Moon, Ling Yue and the others. Just now, Lu Ming had already thought of a plan to deal with the silver-eyed Extreme Een Corpse. With their strength, even if they had the blue firestone attached to the silver-eyed Extreme Een Corpse, they still had to plan carefully. Otherwise, it would be difficult to succeed. Alright, let's do it this way. The others nodded. Then, they increased their speed and rushed out of the ancient city. Seeing Lu Ming and the others rushing over, the silver-eyed Extreme Een Corpse in this direction let out a roar. Following that, an army of at least several thousand Extreme Een Corpses rushed towards Lu Ming and the others. Although there were only 10 of them, Lu Ming and the others were not afraid at all. They directly clashed with the army of Extreme Een Corpses. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, Lu Ming waved his war god spear and shot out spear lights. Dozens of spear lights pierced dozens of Extreme Een Corpses. These Extreme Een Corpses, who had astonishing defensive power, were now defenseless against Lu Ming's attack. Their bodies were easily pierced by the war god spear. Wisps of blue flames enveloped these Extreme Een Corpses. Beside Lu Ming, the bone demon emitted a soul fluctuation. He held the purple gold battle axe in his hand and continuously slashed out. Every time he slashed out, an extreme Yin corpse would be split in half. In an instant, more than 20 extreme Yin corpses had been slashed by the bone demon. The others were not bad. With the blue firestone attached to the divine weapon, dealing with these extreme Yin corpses became very easy. Chapter 48:23. Against these extreme Yin corpses, using a spear is a disadvantage. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Even if he used a spear to pierce a hole in the extreme Yin corpse, the extreme Yin corpse wouldn't die. It would only be injured by the blue flames. And splitting the extreme Yin corpse in half would cause it to lose its ability to fight for a short period of time. Then, it would be much easier to kill it completely. Thinking of this, Lu Ming's spear changed. It no longer focused on stabbing, but on hacking and slashing. Xiu xiu xiu. The tip of the spear drew an arc like a blade as it struck the extreme Yin corpses one by one. Poo poo poo. These extreme Yin corpses were split in half and lost their ability to fight. Following that, the war god's spear shook and a terrifying power burst out, crushing the extreme Yin corpses that were split in half and turning them into pieces. Lu Ming and the other 10 formed a circle. Lu Ming, Bone Demon, Qiu Qiu, Xianyanqing, and Autumn Moon had the strength of the strongest Lord of Heaven and stood at the outermost circle. Wan Shen, Ling Yue, Tang Jun, and Bubbles were in the inner circle. As for Dandan, she was in the middle. Among the 10, only Dandan didn't attack the extreme Yin corpses because he had been inscribing the array. In the blink of an eye, several hundred extreme Yin corpses were killed by Lu Ming and the others. With the blue firestone attached to the divine weapon, it was much easier to deal with the extreme Yin corpses. Previously, cutting the extreme Yin corpses was like an ordinary person holding a kitchen knife and cutting steel. Now, it was like an ordinary person holding a kitchen knife and cutting cabbage. Yes, it was that easy. And the extreme Yin corpses were naturally afraid of the blue firestone. Facing the blue firestone, they couldn't use their full strength, so it was naturally easier to deal with them. Roar roar. Finally, a terrifying extreme Yin corpse approached Lu Ming and the others. Was it the extreme Yin corpse that was comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven? There were a total of 10 of them. Kill! Lu Ming shouted. Strike out with a palm? The primeval desolation style erupted and condensed a continent, which pressed down on the 2 absolute Yin corpses. 2 absolute Yin corpses soared into the sky? Tear the continent apart? However, Lu Ming's follow-up attack arrived. Unleashing the heaven-breaking technique, man and spear became one, transforming into a dazzling spear light. Stabbing one of the absolute Yin corpses? It pierced through his body. Blue flames on blue firestones? Immediately diffusing out? This absolute Yin corpse was roaring? Retreating rapidly? He urged the black gas to resist the blue flame with all his might. Subsequently, Lu Ming's figure turned and charged towards the second absolute Yin corpse. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, the absolute Yin corpse's claws continuously clawed out, bursting forth with terrifying claw radiance to resist Lu Ming. Rumble. The 2 of them exchanged more than 10 moves in a row. In the end, Lu Ming defeated these claw lights. The war god's spear pierced the palm of the absolute Yin corpse. He had easily broken through the opponent's defense and pierced through the opponent's palm. Furthermore, the war god's spear hadn't stopped. It continued forward and pierced through the absolute Yin corpse's chest. The absolute Yin corpse was heavily injured and quickly retreated. However, Lu Ming wouldn't let it leave so easily. His spear changed from a stab to a slash. Poof! Its vitality was directly injured by the blue firestones. Naturally, it wasn't Lu Ming's opponent and was immediately split in half. However, this kind of absolute Yin corpse was truly powerful. Its body that had been split in half was still covered in black gas, trying to recover. However, Lu Ming didn't stop attacking. The war god's spear continuously stabbed out, piercing the absolute Yin corpse. The blue flames on the blue firestones continued to spread out, completely enveloping the absolute Yin corpse and consuming its black gas. Following this, the war god's spear pressed down and the opponent's body exploded into pieces. An absolute Yin corpse that was comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven was completely killed. Gu Mo, Xian Yanqing, Qiu Yu, and Qiu, under the cooperation of the Blue Firestone, had also achieved great results. At this time, they had also killed an absolute Yin corpse that was comparable to the strongest Heaven Monarch realm. Of the 10 strongest absolute Yin corpses, only 5 were left. Finally, the silver-eyed Yin corpse couldn't hold back anymore and attacked. It let out a loud roar and charged towards Lu Ming and the others. "Be careful, defend," Lu Ming shouted as he quickly retreated back into the circle. Bone Demon, Qiu, Xian Yanqing, and Autumn Moon also retreated and regrouped with the others. They formed a circle again, surrounding the weaker ones in the middle. After the silver-eyed Yin corpse charged out for a distance, it stopped when it was dozens of miles away from Lu Ming and the others. It didn't continue to charge forward. Instead, it waved its 2 sharp claws and clawed out continuously. Chi. As the sharp claws clawed out, the void was torn apart. Several terrifying claw radiances shot towards Lu Ming at a shocking speed. "Block it!" Lu Ming shouted as he recovered the War God Spear. He continuously swept out and hit several claw radiances. The War God's spear vibrated violently. Lu Ming felt a terrifying energy surging from the War God's spear and into Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's body shook violently as he couldn't help but retreat. His feet created 2 deep pits in the ground. Lu Ming's arms were trembling slightly. The blood in his body was in turmoil and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Too strong. The silver-eyed Yin corpse's attack power was too strong. It was far stronger than the strongest Lord of Heaven. Lu Ming wanted to block it, but it was difficult. This was only the claw radiance. The opponent's body hadn't come close, so its attack power couldn't be fully unleashed. Otherwise, Lu Ming would have been seriously injured. It was definitely comparable to Gu Changfeng's battle power. However, the opponent's intelligence wasn't low. It was obviously wary of the Blue Firestone and didn't dare to come close. It only dared to attack from afar. The silver-eyed Yin corpse let out another roar. Its 2 claws fiercely clawed out again. 2 claw radiances flew out and continued to claw at Lu Ming. Obviously, the silver-eyed Yin corpse wanted to attack one point and break through it. Then, it would completely defeat Lu Ming and the others. "I'll block his attack." The Bone Demon's voice rang out. Its body flashed and appeared in front of Lu Ming. It ignored its own defense and allowed the claw radiances to hit its body. Dang, the Bone Demon's body was pushed back. However, nothing happened to it. The Bone Demon's body was too hard. In terms of defense, it was stronger than the silver-eyed Yin corpse. The silver-eyed Yin corpse's attack couldn't break the Bone Demon's defense at all. It could only push the Bone Demon back. After the Bone Demon was pushed back, its strength exploded and it charged at the silver-eyed Yin corpse again. It wanted to fight with the silver-eyed Yin corpse. The silver-eyed Yin corpse roared and clawed out again. The terrifying claw radiances bombarded the Bone Demon's body again, sending it flying. However, the Bone Demon was still fine. Come on. The Bone Demon laughed and continued to charge forward. The silver-eyed Yin corpse obviously didn't know how to use soul attacks. It couldn't hurt the Bone Demon's soul. It wasn't a threat to the Bone Demon at all. The Bone Demon continued to charge at the silver-eyed Yin corpse. This time, the silver-eyed Yin corpse was smarter. It didn't attack the Bone Demon anymore. Instead, its body flashed and disappeared like a flash of lightning. It appeared in another direction and clawed at Autumn Moon with 2 claw radiances. 9 apertures in 1 slash. Autumn Moon used her strongest attack. A blade radiance slashed out and collided with the 2 claw radiances. Chapter 48-24. However, just like Lu Ming, Autumn Moon found it difficult to completely block the power of the claw. There was still some residual power that hit Autumn Moon's body, causing Autumn Moon's figure to explosively retreat with a red face. Shua. This silver-eyed Yin corpse was really smart. Seeing that the attack was effective against Autumn Moon, it continued to attack. "Your opponent is me." Bone Demon shouted and charged towards Autumn Moon, helping Autumn Moon block the second attack. However, the silver-eyed Yin corpse's figure flashed again and appeared in front of Lu Ming. Its sharp claws pierced through the air and 2 claw attacks attacked Lu Ming. The silver-eyed Yin corpse was too fast and Bone Demon alone could not block it. Fortunately, Qiu was already prepared. In a flash, Qiu appeared on Lu Ming's divine spear and turned into a halberd, slashing out. However, Qiu was also not a match and its body was sent flying. However, like Bone Demon, Qiu was only sent flying and was fine. Qiu was a metal life form, so its vitality and defense were already very high. Moreover, Qiu had also swallowed an Origin-grade Divine Weapon Battle Armor and had the defensive power of an Origin-grade Divine Weapon Battle Armor. It made its own defensive power even more shocking. The silver-eyed Yin corpse could not break through Qiu's defense with just the claw attacks. Bone Demon, let's each take one side and block its attacks. Qiu transmitted to Bone Demon. All right. Bone Demon replied and stared at the silver-eyed Yin corpse with Qiu on one side. Next, the silver-eyed Yin corpse continuously changed its position and launched several attacks, but they were all blocked by Bone Demon and Qiu. Bone Demon and Qiu worked together and finally caught up with the silver-eyed Yin corpse's rhythm. Roar, roar. The silver-eyed Yin corpse let out an angry roar. A fierce glint flashed in its eyes. This silver-eyed Yin corpse is about to lose its mind. I'm afraid it won't take long. Is it going to risk a close combat attack? Dandan? How's your array formation going? Lu Ming transmitted to everyone and finally asked Dandan. Soon? Soon? Hold on a little longer. Dandan replied. He had long since reverted to his original form. The tortoise shell was suffused with runes. A large number of runes were constantly being emitted. They seeped into the void. His whole body was emitting white smoke. Clearly, he had already given it his all. At this moment, in other directions, the quasi-saint race had already finished their battle. Among them, with a peerless expert who had surpassed the strongest Lord of Heaven and the Blue Firestone, there was basically no suspense in the battle. It did not take long for the silver-eyed Yin corpse to be killed. Killed the silver-eyed Yin corpse? Then deal with the other absolute Yin corpses? Even easier? Several thousand absolute Yin corpses. Very quickly, the quasi-saint race finished them off. The ground was filled with the remains of the extreme Yin corpse. They stood high in the sky and looked down at the battlefield between the heavenly human tribe and Lu Ming. Young master? Should we go and help them? A person from the quasi-saint race asked. Help them? Why should we help them? Didn't we say that each of us would take care of one side? Let's just let them take care of it themselves. Let's go to that Qi meridian that's about to collapse. Song Qiong said indifferently. Then, the people from the quasi-saint race quickly left the place and disappeared without a trace. At this moment, the battle between the heavenly human tribe and the extreme Yin corpse had reached its final juncture. Originally, although the heavenly human tribe had the combat strength of the 6th strongest Lord of Heaven, it was very difficult for them to fight against the silver-eyed Yin corpse. However, they had a secret treasure. This secret treasure was a one-time use secret treasure. It was very precious and priceless. Even the Lord of Heaven Exterminator and the others only had one of it. This secret treasure was dug out by the heavenly human tribe from a ruin of the universe. Once it was activated, it could transform into thousands of powerful puppets and firmly entangle the silver-eyed Yin corpse. In addition, the 2 primitive puppets fought desperately to entangle the silver-eyed Yin corpse. After paying a heavy price, they finally killed the Lord of Heaven Exterminator. The Lord of Heaven Exterminator and the others seized the opportunity to attack the silver-eyed Yin corpse with their divine weapons that were enchanted with blue firestones. Finally, they successfully killed the silver-eyed Yin corpse. However, in this battle, the heavenly human tribe had destroyed a priceless secret treasure. The 2 primitive puppets were also severely injured. One of them was almost torn in half. The other puppet's body was also in tatters. However, this primitive puppet had become very evil after the heavenly human tribe's continuous experiments. It had integrated dozens of top forces in the universe. Although it was severely injured, it could recover quickly. After killing the silver-eyed Yin corpse, It was easy to deal with the other extreme Yin corpses. The heavenly human tribe quickly took control of the situation. Then, they looked at the battlefield where Lu Ming and the others were fighting. There are 5 masters comparable to the Lord of Heaven. This Lu Ming, the pupils of the Lord of Heaven Exterminator, the Lord of Heaven Exterminator and the others constricted violently. Deep fear appeared in their eyes. Lu Ming and the others only had 10 people, but there were 5 of them who were as powerful as the Lord of Heaven. This was too terrifying. Exterminator, should we leave or? The Lord of Heaven Exterminator asked. No, I want to watch here. Although Lu Ming and the others have the strength of the Lord of Heaven Exterminator, they are definitely not a match for the silver-eyed Yin corpse. Sooner or later, the silver-eyed Yin corpse will kill them one by one. I want to see how Lu Ming is killed with my own eyes. The Lord of Heaven Exterminator said coldly. They looked at the battlefield where Lu Ming and the others were fighting. They wanted to see with their own eyes how Lu Ming and the others were killed by the extreme Yin corpse. At this moment, the battle between Lu Ming and the extreme Yin corpse had entered a critical moment. The silver-eyed Yin corpse finally couldn't hold it in and gradually lost its mind. It let out an angry roar and charged at Lu Ming and the others, intending to engage in close combat. Be careful! Lu Ming shouted. The silver-eyed Yin corpse's strength was terrifying, and the most terrifying thing was undoubtedly its close combat. It was very dangerous. Lu Ming, Bone Demon, Qiu, Xian Yanqing, and Qiu Yu increased their strength to the limit, preparing to fight the silver-eyed Yin corpse and stall for time. I'll do it! Bone Demon roared and rushed out first. He charged at the silver-eyed Yin corpse and slashed out with his purple-gold battle axe. The silver-eyed Yin corpse roared and didn't dodge. Instead, it clawed at Bone Demon with its sharp claws. With a clang, the purple-gold battle axe clashed with the silver-eyed Yin corpse's claws, causing a loud explosion. Then, Bone Demon's body was sent flying by the powerful force. The silver-eyed Yin corpse paused for a moment before charging at Lu Ming and the others. Only one nail was broken. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. One had to know that the purple-gold battle axe in Bone Demon's hand was already covered with blue firestone. It could restrain the extreme Yin corpse and easily break its defense. But in the collision just now, it only managed to cut off one nail. It was clear that the silver-eyed Yin corpse was too strong. Its body was immortal and had a strong resistance against the blue firestone. Even if it relied on the blue firestone, it wouldn't be easy to break its defense. Freeze for me! Qiu roared and shot out an illusory light beam, enveloping the silver-eyed Yin corpse. The silver-eyed Yin corpse's body paused for a moment. Chapter 48:25. Qiu's illusory light pillar was effective against the silver-eyed Yin corpse. This meant that the silver-eyed Yin corpse had a soul and was affected by the illusory light pillar. However, it only affected the silver-eyed Yin corpse for a short while. Black chi surged from its body and destroyed the illusory light pillar in an instant. It then charged towards Lu Ming's group. At this time, Xian Yanqing and Autumn Moon made their moves one after another. Xian Yanqing summoned the immeasurable Devil Steel's phantom image. It emitted a torrential devil chi that suppressed the silver-eyed Yin corpse. On the other hand, Autumn Moon slashed out with his strongest blade. Boom! Boom! The silver-eyed Yin corpse's sharp claws slashed out continuously, destroying Xian Yanqing and Autumn Moon's attacks. However, Autumn Moon's battle blade was also covered in blue firestones. This attack successfully cut off one of the silver-eyed Yin corpse's fingernails. Desolate style. Sky-breaking style. Lu Ming also made his move. First, he struck out with his palm. Then, he became one with his spear and stabbed towards the silver-eyed Yin corpse. However, the silver-eyed Yin corpse only needed a claw to tear the land into pieces. Then, it grabbed the war god spear's tip. Sizzle! The war god spear's tip pierced the silver-eyed Yin corpse's palm. Sizzle! Sizzle! Sparks flew in all directions. The war god spear's body bent. At the same time, Lu Ming felt an incomparably terrifying energy rushing towards him from the war god spear. With a cracking sound, the bones in Lu Ming's hand immediately broke. He retreated rapidly, only stopping when he was beside Ling Yue and the others. It didn't pierce through. Lu Ming's pupils shrank. He clearly saw that the silver-eyed Yin corpse's palm wasn't pierced through by him. It was only pierced halfway through. Blue flames spread out from the wound on the silver-eyed Yin corpse's palm. It covered the entire palm and quickly spread up the arm. The silver-eyed Yin corpse let out a terrifying roar that shook heaven and earth. The black chi on its body surged and rushed towards its arm, forcibly suppressing the blue flames. Then the silver-eyed Yin corpse charged towards Lu Ming and the others. Bone Demon, Qiuqiu, Lu Ming, Xianyanqing, and Autumn Moon had no choice but to work together to block the attack. This time, Lu Ming waved his hand and shot out hundreds of long needles and shuttles made from blue firestones, charging towards the silver-eyed Yin corpse. However, without the support of the divine weapon, without the support of their own strength, the blue firestone was too weak. The silver-eyed Yin corpse waved his sharp claws and shot out waves of energy, destroying the blue firestone needles and shuttles. However, Lu Ming and the others had long since expected this. With a wave of their hands, a large amount of blue firestone powder flew out, covering a large area. This affected the silver-eyed Yin corpse a little. The blue firestone powder covered his body and made sizzling sounds. It affected the silver-eyed Yin corpse's speed and strength. Then, Lu Ming and the others used all their strength to barely block the silver-eyed Yin corpse's attack, but they were also forced to retreat. Bone Demon and Qiuqiu were still fine, but Lu Ming, Xianyanqing, and Autumn Moon were all injured, with blood dripping from the corners of their mouths. This was under the premise of the blue firestone. Although the silver-eyed Yin corpse had a strong resistance to the blue firestone could still affect him. Especially when it was attached to a divine weapon, its power was astonishing. If the silver-eyed Yin corpse was hit, he would also be injured. Otherwise, Lu Ming and the others would not be able to fight against such an expert. For example, Lu Ming and the others would be defeated quickly in the battle against Gu Changfeng or the Immortal. They would definitely not be able to hold on for so long. Lu Ming and the others used all kinds of methods to fight against the silver-eyed Yin corpse with the help of the blue firestone for more than 10 minutes. "Done, I've done it." Finally, Danden's voice rang in everyone's ears. Everyone's spirits were lifted. They had been waiting for this moment. Act according to the plan. Lu Ming transmitted to everyone. "Freeze!" Qiuqiu shouted and was the first to attack. He shot out an illusory light beam and enveloped the silver-eyed Yin corpse. Although Qiuqiu's illusory light beam had an effect on the silver-eyed Yin corpse, the effect was very small. Under normal circumstances, the silver-eyed Yin corpse would be able to break free in an instant. But now, what they needed was just an instant. That was enough. Space-time swamp. Bubble immediately attacked. Her glabella glowed and 2 origin source ancient characters flew out. The space-time power erupted and enveloped the silver-eyed Yin corpse in it. The silver-eyed Yin corpse roared angrily. Black gas erupted and he struggled to break free from the illusory light beam. A powerful force rushed out, wanting to destroy Bubble's space-time swamp. Bubble's space-time power was very strong. Unfortunately, her cultivation was a little weak. She was only at the 7th layer Divine Master Realm, which was too far away from the silver-eyed Yin corpse. At most, she could only affect it a little. But a little bit of effect was enough. Heavenly Demon Field. Xianyanqing and Bubble attacked at almost the same time, striking out with the Heavenly Demon Field. With Xianyanqing's cultivation and the support of the immeasurable Devil Steel, the Heavenly Demon Field's power reached its peak. In addition to Bubble's space-time power, the silver-eyed Yin corpse's speed decreased by a lot. It was as if he had fallen into a swamp. "Inescapable net, seal for me." Danden roared and pressed his palms against the void. Runes filled the void and intertwined to form a formation. This formation formed an inescapable net. There were 2 nets above and below, enveloping the silver-eyed Yin corpse. The silver-eyed Yin corpse was affected by the illusory light beam, space-time swamp, and heavenly demon field. It was too late for it to escape the formation's range. The silver-eyed Yin corpse roared and struggled madly. However, This formation was something Dandan had obtained from the myriad transformations ruins. It had taken him a lot of time to set it up. It was extremely powerful, and the silver-eyed Yin corpse wouldn't be able to break free in a short time. Lu Ming and the others wouldn't give him the time to break free. Lu Ming, Autumn Moon, Bone Devil, Qiu Myriad God, Ling Yue, Tang Jun, and the others attacked together. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Ling Yue drew her bow and shot out 9 arrows in succession. These arrows weren't formed from energy, but were real divine weapons. Each arrow's arrowhead had a blue firestone attached to it. The 9 arrows were the first to approach the silver-eyed Yin corpse. Although the silver-eyed Yin corpse sent 6 arrows flying, 3 arrows still hit the silver-eyed Yin corpse. 3 small holes appeared on the silver-eyed Yin corpse's body. The blue flames on the silver-eyed Yin corpse immediately spread out along the small holes. Subsequently, Lu Ming, Autumn Moon, and the others' attacks arrived. Autumn Moon slashed out with all her strength, aiming for the silver-eyed Yin corpse's head. The silver-eyed Yin corpse waved its arm to block the attack. The battle blade slashed at the silver-eyed Yin corpse's arm. The silver-eyed Yin corpse's other arm blocked Qiu's attack. However, although he used his arm to block Autumn Moon and Qiu's attacks, his arm was still injured. The blue flames spread and quickly consumed the silver-eyed Yin corpse's black gas. Lu Ming and Bone Devil's attacks also arrived. Chapter 48-26. Lu Ming threw the War God Spear out. The War God Spear pierced toward the silver-eyed Yin corpse like a bolt of lightning. The silver-eyed corpse could no longer dodge. With a puff, the silver-eyed corpse's chest was pierced by the War God Spear. However, the spear did not penetrate the silver-eyed corpse's chest. Half was enough. Blue flames spread out and enveloped the silver-eyed corpse's upper body in blue flames. Lu Ming held a battle sword in his hand and slashed at the silver-eyed corpse. This battle sword was also a soul-grade divine weapon. It was also covered in blue firestones. Lu Ming's battle sword and Bone Demon's purple-gold battle axe hit the silver-eyed corpse at the same time. The silver-eyed corpse's defense had been weakened many times. With Lu Ming and Bone Demon attacking with all their strength, they finally broke through the silver-eyed corpse's defense. The silver-eyed corpse was cut into 3 pieces. The raging blue flames completely enveloped the silver-eyed corpse. Then, Wan Xin and Tang Jun's attacks also arrived. They bombarded the silver-eyed corpse's remaining body parts and broke it into dozens of pieces. Lu Ming and the others did not stop. They continued to attack. Boom boom boom. After another wave of attacks, the silver-eyed corpse was completely smashed into powder. It could no longer be revived. The silver-eyed corpse was finally destroyed by Lu Ming and the others' meticulous plan. Buzz. Lu Ming grabbed the War God Spear and stabbed it to the right. It pierced through a desolate Yin corpse that was comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven. Then he slashed the desolate Yin corpse on the left and right, splitting it in half. Although the desolate Yin corpse was killed, the battle was not over. The remaining desolate Yin corpses did not have any rationality. After the silver-eyed corpse died, they charged at Lu Ming and the others. However, without the silver-eyed corpse, these desolate Yin corpses were no longer a threat to Lu Ming and the others. This scene was seen by the heavenly human tribe in the distance. Damn it, they killed the silver-eyed corpse. The Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles roared angrily. He was extremely unhappy. What a brilliant plan. This Lu Ming really has a deep mind. He made a series of arrangements and perfectly combined their strengths to kill the silver-eyed Yin corpse. But this also proves one thing. The Lord of Heaven of Extermination said, but he was not as angry as the Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles. What is it? The heavenly monarch of 100 Battles asked. When they were attacked by the silver-eyed Yin corpse earlier, they were in a perilous situation. Lu Ming's 2 women were both injured, but Lu Ming did not use any stronger strength. It seems like the old ancestor's guess was right. The heavenly Lord of Extermination said coldly. There was a sneer at the corners of his lips. His fear of Lu Ming had dissipated by half. You mean, Lu Ming can't use the strength that he used to kill the 3 strongest Lord of Heaven? The Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles' eyes lit up as he remembered. It's most likely that he can't use it. Otherwise, it's impossible for him to sit back and watch his women get injured. But just in case, we still have to observe. If he can't use that kind of strength, then Lu Ming will be much easier to deal with, the Lord of Heaven of Extermination said. He was mainly afraid of the strength that Lu Ming used in the Heaven Destroyer Station. It was too strong. Killing the strongest Lord of Heaven was like chopping melons and vegetables. Without that kind of strength, Lu Ming was only comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven. He himself was the strongest Lord of Heaven. What was there to be afraid of? However, he still didn't dare to deal with Lu Ming. Firstly, Lu Ming's side also had 5 most powerful heavenly lords. Although there were 6 of them, the 2 primitive divine spirit puppets were seriously injured. If they were to strike now, they would not be able to do anything to Lu Ming and the rest. There was one more thing. He was afraid that Lu Ming could still use that kind of power. Let's go. We'll leave first, the Lord of Heaven of Extermination said, and left with the heavenly human tribe. Outside the ancient city, only Lu Ming and the others were still fighting with the Extreme Yin Corps. However, the remaining Extreme Yin Corpses weren't a threat to Lu Ming and the others. With the support of the Blue Firestone, a large number of Extreme Yin Corpses were killed. Soon, the strongest batch of Extreme Yin Corpses were killed by Lu Ming and the others. They then rushed out of the encirclement and shook off the weaker Extreme Yin Corpses. Lu Ming, where are we going next? Gu Mo asked. When we went to the ancient city with the Quasi-Saint tribe, we saw a chi vein that was about to collapse. Let's go there. Lu Ming said. It wasn't easy to find a chi vein. When a chi vein collapsed, the treasures under it would fly out. This was an opportunity that couldn't be missed. The others naturally didn't have any objections. The group flew in the direction of the chi vein. Although they occasionally encountered a few Extreme Yin Corpses on the way, they weren't a threat to them and were easily killed. Soon, Lu Ming and the others arrived near the chi vein again. Last time, when they passed by this chi vein, there were many Extreme Yin Corpses around it. But this time, they didn't see any Extreme Yin Corpses. Because they were all killed. They were all killed by the Quasi-Saint tribe and the Heavenly Human tribe. Lu Ming squinted his eyes. Not far ahead, there were a large number of figures. They were the Quasi-Saint tribe led by Tsang Qiong, the Lord of Heaven of Extermination, and the Heavenly Human tribe led by the Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles. Obviously, they came here after leaving the ancient city. Rumble. A dull rumble came from underground. On the surface, the Chi Meridian was actually a mountain range. It was incomparably majestic. At this moment, huge cracks appeared on this majestic mountain range, spreading out in all directions. From time to time, dazzling purple-gold light rushed out from the cracks. The Quasi-Saint tribe and the Heavenly Human tribe stood outside the mountain range and didn't approach. Lu Ming and the others flew over. The Quasi-Saint tribe and the Heavenly Human tribe naturally discovered Lu Ming and the others. Tsang Qiong's eyes flickered. He was surprised to see Lu Ming and the others. At this moment, Lu Ming and the others had almost recovered from their injuries. Tsang Qiong didn't expect that Lu Ming and the others would get rid of the Extreme Yin Corpses and come here unscathed. Brother Lu, it's great that you're fine. Tsang Qiong smiled and walked over to greet Lu Ming. Hypocrite. Dandan snorted in displeasure. However, his voice didn't spread out. It only echoed in the ears of Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and the others. Tsang Qiong didn't hear it. Lu Ming naturally knew why Dandan was unhappy. There was a powerful expert in the Quasi-Saint tribe. They had gotten rid of the silver-eyed Yin corpse long ago but left alone without any intention to help. What about the alliance? Moreover, Lu Ming and the others had saved the people of the Quasi-Saint tribe. Tsang Qiong looked polite and gentle on the surface, but he was actually very sinister. However, Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon, Wan Shen, and the others were all experienced people. They controlled their expressions well. Although they were unhappy, they didn't show it on the surface. After all, now wasn't the time to offend the Quasi-Saint tribe. Heaven Destroyer had a hard time dealing with the creatures of the Forbidden Area and the Heavenly Human tribe. There was no need to become enemies with the Quasi-Saint tribe. Chapter 48:27. Lu Ming smiled and said, "Thank you for your concern, Brother Tsongqiong. We were lucky to be able to deal with the extreme Yin corpse. It's all thanks to the blue firestone, Lu Ming said briefly before changing the topic. Brother Tsongqiong, why don't you enter the realm veins to search for treasures? We also want to enter, but it's very dangerous now. The realm veins are filled with dense heavenly paradise light. It's very dangerous when the realm veins crack and the heavenly paradise light will rush out. Once struck by the heavenly paradise light, even origin realm experts will be injured, let alone us. We can only enter when the heavenly paradise light overflows from the realm veins. Tsongqiong explained. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. The heavenly paradise light mentioned by Tsongqiong was the purplish golden light. Indeed, the heavenly paradise light was very dangerous. Some of the heavenly paradise light would rush out of the heavenly paradise. They had relied on the crossing flying ship to enter the purple heaven paradise. However, the heavenly paradise light here was even denser. It rushed out directly from the realm veins and was even more powerful. Even the crossing flying ship might not be able to withstand it. Only when the heavenly paradise light overflowed would the realm veins be safe. Now, they could only wait outside the mountain range. Lu Ming's group finally understood why the people of the Quasi-Saint tribe and Heavenly Human tribe were surrounding the area. On the other side, the Lord of Heaven of Annihilation and the Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles looked over coldly. Dandan glared back. However, Lu Ming was too lazy to pay attention to the people of the Heavenly Human tribe. Instead, he studied the mountain range. This mountain range was the realm veins. It was extremely huge and spanned a wide area. There were a few huge cracks on the mountain range. From time to time, purplish golden heavenly paradise light would overflow. Rumbling sounds came from the cracks. An even more violent rumble erupted. An even denser heavenly paradise light rushed out. Accompanying the heavenly paradise light were specks of light that resembled raindrops. Desolation crystals? Lu Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. What were those specks of heavenly paradise light? They were clearly desolation crystals. Densely packed? At least 100,000 crystals. Heavenly abode light? As they soared into the sky, the great desolate crystals scattered in all directions. There was nothing to hesitate about. Quasi-immortal race? The members of the Heavenly Human tribe all rushed toward the desolate gems. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and the others also moved. Using body movement techniques, he charged towards the desolate crystals. Lu Ming used the Great Aurora technique, body like an aurora, rushing to the front. The activation of forbidden power. They transformed into giant hands that grabbed at the desolate crystals. Soon, a few thousand desolate crystals were in his hands. The others also used their own methods. In just a few breaths' time, over 100,000 desolate crystals had been completely divided. Was it because there were too many people? The quasi-immortal race and the celestial race combined? More than 4,000 people? So many people attacking together? Naturally, it was divided very quickly. I got 5,000 primordial crystals in one go. Not bad. Lu Ming nodded in satisfaction. Did Lu Ming obtain the desolate crystal just now? It was about 5,000 yuan. It accounted for 1/20th of the desolate crystals that flew out just now. There's a piece that isn't a desolate crystal. Suddenly, Lu Ming's heart stirred. He discovered that among the 5,000 plus desolate crystals just now, there was one that was very different from the other desolate crystals. With a thought, this desolate crystal appeared in Lu Ming's hand. This desolate crystal looked similar to the other desolate crystals, but its aura was completely different. Inside the desolate crystal, there was rich and pure desolate qi. However, there was no desolate qi in this piece. Instead, there was a trace of origin mark. Origin mark. That's right, it was the origin mark. Could this be a treasure that contains the origin mark? Xian Yanqing, Tang Jun, Dandan, and the others were also curiously sizing up the desolate crystal in Lu Ming's hand. Dandan said curiously, "This should be an immortal crystal." Suddenly, a clear voice sounded from the sky. Immortal crystal? Brother Tsongqiong, what's an immortal crystal? Lu Ming asked curiously, because this was the first time he had heard of this name. Immortal crystals were the name given to these crystals in the last epoch. Crystals with origin imprints like the one in Brother Lu's hand were known as immortal crystals during the primordial continent. They're extremely useful to those at reciprocity or above. They can increase the cultivation of those at reciprocity or above. They're priceless, said Jianqin. However, immortal crystals are divided into different grades as well. The one in Brother Lu's hand should be of the lowest grade, but it's still extremely valuable. Although it's not as valuable as Origin Tier God pills, it's not too far off. It's far more valuable than Master Tier God pills or Desolate crystals. Song Qiong explained. Only then did Lu Ming and the rest understand that these immortal crystals were used by those at or above the Origin realm to cultivate and increase their cultivation level. Actually, during the Desolate continent, Desolate crystals were not called Desolate crystals. Desolate crystals were only a name given to the creatures of the new epoch. During the Desolate continent, Desolate crystals were known as immortal crystals. They were used by those below reciprocity to cultivate. They were used as currency along with immortal crystals, but they were one grade lower than immortal crystals, Song Qiong continued. Clearly, Song Qiong understood the matters of the Desolate continent extremely well. So, Desolate crystals were known as immortal crystals in the last epoch. Lu Ming and the others murmured, "Let's not talk about it anymore. Brother Lu's luck is very good. He obtained an immortal crystal as soon as he arrived. We didn't obtain a single one before." Song Qiong smiled. "I was just lucky." Lu Ming replied courteously. Afterward, no one said anything more. They continued to wait. However, when they saw Lu Ming obtain an immortal crystal, they all became even more excited. Without a doubt, immortal crystals were far more valuable than desolate crystals. Although many people could not use them right now, immortal crystals were supreme treasures after reaching reciprocity. They could rapidly increase one's cultivation. Even if they did not use them, they could sell them to Origin realm existences in the future to obtain a large amount of treasures. How many treasures were there in the depths of this meridian? Later on, the meridian shook more and more violently. From time to time, heavenly abode light would rush out, accompanied by desolate crystals and the others. In less than a month, millions of desolate crystals had rushed out of the meridian. Moreover, there were 5 immortal crystals. It was really hard to say how many treasures were there in the depths of the meridian. Later on, the heavenly abode light overflowing from the meridian became fainter and fainter. Everyone knew that the heavenly abode light in the meridian was finally about to disperse. Once the heavenly abode light dissipated, they could rush in and sweep away all the treasures in the meridian. "Everyone, how should we distribute the treasures we obtain after entering the meridian? Although the 3 of us are in a cooperative relationship now, one of us is too weak. No one knows whether there are dangers in the meridian. We don't want to take risks for the weak side." At this moment, the Lord of Heaven's cold voice resounded. He glanced at the quasi-immortal tribe, Lu Ming and the others. Chapter 48:28. Lu Ming and the rest sneered. Of course, they knew who the weak party that the heavenly Lord of Extermination was referring to. He was obviously referring to Lu Ming and the rest. The quasi-sage race and the celestial race had more than 2,000 experts. As for Lu Ming and the others, including Qiuqiu, there were only 10 of them. In comparison, their strength was too weak. Obviously, the Lord of Heaven's subtext was that Lu Ming and the others were not worthy of cooperating with the quasi-sage race and the celestial race. Song Qiong pondered for a moment and said, "Why don't we split up? Otherwise, when we enter the Qi meridians, it will hurt our harmony because of the treasures." Once they entered the Qi meridians, everyone would want to obtain the treasures. It was inevitable that a fight would occur. If they split up, they could avoid this problem. Although Song Qiong was much more polite, his meaning was the same as the celestial race. He didn't want to move together with Lu Ming and the others. With Lu Ming and the others' intelligence, how could they not understand? These guys, Dandan was very unhappy. "Good, that's just right." Lu Ming spoke. To tell the truth, he didn't want to cooperate with these people. "Then let's choose the direction to enter the Qi meridians." That direction will belong to us. The Lord of Heaven spoke and pointed to the northeast direction. We are the first to arrive here. Let's enter the Qi meridians from here. Song Qiong also spoke. Why are you the first to choose? Why did you choose the two best places? Dandan finally couldn't help but shout. Wan Shen, Ling Yue, and the others also revealed angry expressions. The location to enter the Qi meridians was also very particular. The celestial race and the quasi-sage race chose the two directions with the largest cracks. The heavenly abode divine light that overflowed the most was also the densest. It was very likely that there were the most treasures inside. Comparatively speaking, the other locations were much worse. Our two groups came first. First come, first served. Naturally, we'll choose first. Furthermore, there are so many people in our two groups. Even if there are treasures, each of us will only be able to obtain a small portion. On the other hand, there are only 10 of you. The Lord of Heaven of Extermination said coldly. That's right. Furthermore, other than those two positions, there are so many other positions for you all to choose from. It's one thing for you all to not thank us, but instead, you all are blaming us. You are truly too greedy. The heavenly monarch of 100 battles continued. F***CK, this is all nonsense. What does this have to do with the number of people? This time, it was the myriad god who was cursing. He was furious and looked like he was about to attack. However, a hand grabbed Wan Shen's shoulder and said, "Forget it. I can't be bothered with these shameless people. Let's choose another location." The one who had stopped the myriad gods was actually Dandan. Could it be that Dandan discovered something? Lu Ming knew Dandan too well. When he saw Dandan's eyes, he knew that this guy had most likely discovered something. The previous clamor was just an act. Otherwise, given Dandan's personality, he would definitely erupt with Wan Shen. Why would he stop Wan Shen? On what basis? They clearly chose the best location. Wan Shen was still unconvinced. Wan Shen, forget it. We can't be bothered to fight with them. Let's go to another location. Lu Ming stopped Wan Shen and flew to another location. Lu Ming spoke. Wan Shen was helpless. He could only snort angrily and follow Lu Ming. Xian Yanqing, Ling Yue, and the others followed. It seems that Lu Ming's strength is indeed limited. The Lord of Heaven of Extermination was even more relieved. He had chosen a good location for two reasons. First, a good location naturally had good treasures. Second, he wanted to test Lu Ming. If Lu Ming was really strong, he wouldn't have swallowed his anger. The Lord of Heaven of Extermination was less wary of Lu Ming. He led the people of the heavenly human race to the location they had chosen. Lu Ming and the others also came to another location. Lu Ming and Dandan, why did you retreat? If we really wanted to fight, although they have more people, we might not be afraid. Wan Shen grumbled unhappily. You'll have to ask Dandan this question. Dandan, did you discover something? Lu Ming asked Dandan. As expected of Lu Ming. You have some of my demeanor. That's right, I did discover something. I sensed the fluctuations of an array formation from another location. Dandan smiled proudly. Fluctuations of an array formation? What do you mean? Wan Shen still didn't understand. The fluctuations of the array formation are not on the mountain range, but under the Qi meridian. Dandan added. At this moment, Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Tang Jun, and Guimo all reacted. Their eyes suddenly lit up. There were fluctuations of an array formation under the Qi meridian. This was enough to explain a lot of things. One had to know that there weren't any buildings on this Qi meridian, nor were there any arrays. This meant that no one lived here in the previous era. But there were fluctuations of an array formation under an uninhabited Qi meridian. This was definitely not simple. Could it be that some powerhouse from the previous era opened up a cave abode under the Qi meridian? According to some information obtained from the universe ruins, those powerhouses from the previous era loved to open up cave abodes in remote places. If they could find a cave abode opened up by a powerhouse from the previous era, they might be able to gain a lot. What do you mean? Wan Shen was still a little confused. Big guy, your brain is not good. Learn more from me in the future. Look at how smart Lu Ming is. It's because he has been with me for a long time, Then, Dandan briefly explained his speculation. I see. No wonder you guys won't give in so easily. Let's go quickly. Wan Shen was overjoyed. Let's go. Dandan led the way and soon they arrived at their destination. This was the other side of the Qi Meridian. It was a little far from the location chosen by the Quasi-Saint tribe and the Heavenly Human tribe. The crack here was very small. The heavenly abode divine light that overflowed from it previously wasn't dense. The Quasi-Saint tribe and the Heavenly Human tribe definitely wouldn't choose this place. Dandan, is this the place? Lu Ming asked. After arriving here, Lu Ming and the others still didn't feel any fluctuations of an array formation. However, they doubted Dandan's words. Dandan's perception of arrays was too sharp. He shouldn't be wrong. Yes, this is the place. Let's wait a little longer. When the heavenly abode divine light overflows a little more, we'll go in. Dandan said. In the blink of an eye, another 7 days passed. At this time, the heavenly abode divine light in the Qi Meridian had almost dissipated. Even if there was some remaining, it was very thin. Lu Ming and the others could deal with it. In the other two directions, the Quasi-Saint tribe and the Heavenly Human tribe had already entered the Qi Meridian to search for treasures. Let's go. Lu Ming took the lead and rushed into the crack under his feet. The battle god spear was already in his hand. The taboo energy spread all over his body as he was on high alert. Chapter 48-29. Who knew what dangers there would be in the Qi Meridian? After all, this blessed paradise was no longer the same. Other places contained a large number of extreme incorps, so it was not impossible for the Qi Meridian to contain other strange things. It was better to be careful. Their formation was the same as before. Lu Ming, Bone Demon, Qiu Qiu, Xian Yanqing and Autumn Moon were at the outermost circle, surrounding Ling Yue, Tang Jun, Myriad God, Dandan and Bubbles. There's no such cold aura in this Qi Meridian. As soon as they entered the Qi Meridian, Lu Ming and the others felt that there was no cold aura in the Qi Meridian like outside. Without the cold aura, it might be able to nurture a precious divine medicine. Dandan's eyes lit up. The reason why they couldn't find the divine medicine outside was because the cold aura was everywhere, destroying the illusion that nurtured the divine medicine. It should be because of the heavenly passage divine light that the cold aura could not invade. The environment was unique, and it might be able to nurture a rare divine medicine. The crevice was very deep. They flew down for hundreds of miles, but they were still far from reaching the end. We're almost at the location of the array formation. Dandan called out. After descending another 10 miles, they stopped. The array formation is coming from behind this rock. Dandan pointed at the rocks in front of them. Dig through the rocks. Lu Ming was the first to make his move. The war god's spear spun rapidly, like a drill, piercing into the wall. Zzz, bang bang bang, the wall immediately emitted an ear-piercing sound. Sparks flew in all directions, and then, pieces of rock shattered. The rocks here? It was a little too hard. With Lu Ming's cultivation and the war god's spear, the digging speed? It wasn't very fast. But was this normal? Was this the interior of the Qi Meridian? After being nourished by the heavenly passage divine light for many years, ordinary rocks would become incomparably hard? It was like a divine weapon. Bone Demon? Qiu Qiu and Qiu Qiu also dug the rocks together. The others did not make a move. They were on guard against any unexpected situations. Although the rocks were hard? But in Lu Ming's case? Bone Demon? With the three of them working together? A large hole was quickly dug out. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. Lu Ming's war god's spear pierced a ray of light, but it didn't budge at all. Stop, we're here. Formation ripples? This is the place. Dandan shouted. Lu Ming and the other two stopped? Dandan? He observed carefully. What a powerful formation. What the profound formation. Wonderful, truly wonderful. Dandan sighed. His eyes shone with a golden light as if he had seen a priceless treasure. I say, Dandan, can you break this array? The myriad deities asked. If it was in the past, I would truly not be able to do it. However, after the trip to the 10,000 Transformations ruins, I am no longer the same as before. Furthermore, this spirit formation has, after all, existed for far too many years. There are already flaws in it. Breaking it is not difficult at all. At the very most, I will need 3 days to succeed. Dandan said. 3 days? If it takes that long, then wouldn't the treasures under the Qi Meridian be completely plundered by others? The myriad deities said. This is very likely a cave dwelling left behind by a mighty figure from the previous era. If that mighty figure left behind some treasures, those desolation gems would not be able to compare to them. Dandan said. In the end, Lu Ming and the others were persuaded by Dandan to guard him while Dandan began to break the formation with all his might. Dandan transformed into his true form. His tortoise shell shone brightly as dense runes appeared on it. He began to study the formation here. Dandan's research was not only to break the formation, but also to learn from him. His understanding of the Tao of formations would become deeper and deeper, which was also a form of improvement. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Dandan shouted softly as he pushed his palm forward. In front of his palm were dense runes. These runes constantly intertwined with each other, forming a circular pattern. The circular pattern was imprinted on the formation in front of him. The formation immediately fluctuated violently. After a while, a gap appeared on the formation. Success. This gap will last for a few hours. I have already sensed that there is no danger inside the formation. Let's go in. Dandan said. After saying that, he took the lead and entered the gap in the formation. Immediately after, Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and the others also entered the gap. The next moment, they appeared in a cave. The cave was not big, only about 10 meters in radius. The furnishings in the cave were also very simple. There was only a stone table and 2 stone stools. On the ground on the other side, there was a futon. Other than that, there was nothing else. Everyone's gaze fell on the stone table first, because there were some things placed on the stone table. First of all, there were 12 iron tablets. Each iron tablet was not big, only the size of a baby's palm. They were very simple and filled with the traces of time. Mysterious runes were engraved on them. In addition, there was a book placed beside the tablets. The book was made of an unknown material. It was neither gold nor jade. Lu Ming used his forbidden power to grab the book and found that it was intact. The material of this book was definitely not ordinary. Otherwise, it would not have been able to remain intact after so many years. The book was about a few dozen pages. Unfortunately, Lu Ming did not recognize any of the words on it. Do you recognize the words on it? Lu Ming asked. He handed the book to Xian Yanqing and the others to take a look. Unfortunately, after looking around, they did not recognize any of the words either. The words of the last epoch are completely different from the words of the various races today. However, after so many years of research, we have deciphered many of them. I also recognize some of the words of the last epoch, but I have never seen this kind of language before. Tang Jun said with a slight frown. She speculated that this kind of language was very likely a relatively niche language in the last epoch. What a pity! Lu Ming and the others sighed. Generally speaking, this kind of ancient book was very precious. It was very likely that it recorded powerful formations or powerful qi refinement techniques of the last epoch, or even profound alchemy techniques, blacksmithing techniques, and so on. It was a wealth that could be passed down and revitalized a faction. It was more precious than many natural treasures. However, if they did not recognize it, it was pointless. They could only keep it for now and find a chance to decipher it in the future. Following this, their gazes turned to the 12 metal tiles. What are these tiles for? Myriad God picked up a tile and carefully examined it. Other than finding that this metal tile was ridiculously hard, he did not discover anything else. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Bone Devil, Tang Jun, and the others also picked up a tile and examined it, but they also did not discover anything. The metal tiles were nearly identical in appearance. Only the runes on them were somewhat different. Could this be a joint attack formation used by God Lords or above? Dandan suddenly said after looking at it for a while, a look of pleasant surprise on his face. A joint attack formation used by God Lords or above. Are these the runes on it? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat, a look of pleasant surprise on his face. Chapter 48:30. If it really was a joint attack formation of the Divine Lord realm or above, it would be too precious and priceless. In the current primitive universe, whether it was the heavenly human race, the evil demons, or the Heaven Destroyer, none of them had a joint attack formation of the Divine Lord realm or above. No matter how many Divine Lord realm experts there were, it was difficult to gather the power of so many Divine Lord realm experts and achieve a qualitative change. As a result, the strongest person like the Lord of Heaven could turn the tide of a battle and freely kill in and out of an army of Divine Lord realm experts as if there was no one there. Without a joint attack formation, no matter how many Divine Lord realm experts there were, they were just a basin of loose sand. Once they had a joint attack formation of the Divine Lord realm or above, they would be able to make full use of their advantage in numbers and defeat the strong as the weak. Therefore, once they had a joint attack formation of the Divine Lord realm or above, the Heaven Destroyer would no longer be afraid of the heavenly human race. They would even be able to protect themselves in front of the creatures of the Forbidden Lands. Lu Ming, Tang Jun, and the others looked at Dandan with burning eyes. Don't be happy too early. I learned a lot about joint attack formations of the Divine Lord realm and above in the Wanhua ruins. I'm afraid it's different from what you think. Dandan said. Oh, how is it different? Lu Ming asked. Joint attack formations of the Divine Lord realm and above are completely different from those of the God Emperor realm and the Divine Emperor realm. For those below the Divine Master realm, an ordinary combined attack formation can be used by a large number of experts at the same time. The more experts there are in the formation, the stronger it will be. However, combined attack formations at the Divine Master realm and above cannot achieve this. The main reason is that the power of the Divine Lord realm and above is too strong. Once it explodes, it can destroy the world. Very few formations can withstand it. Therefore, joint attack formations of the Divine Lord realm and above are much more complicated than those of the Divine Lord realm and below. They need a carrier, Dandan explained in detail. A carrier? Lu Ming and the others were puzzled. That's right. Joint attack formations of the Divine Lord realm and above must have a carrier. This carrier can be in any form, such as a battle sword, a battle saber, armor, or this iron plate. Dandan carefully observed the iron plate in her hand and said, first of all, a master refiner and a master of formations must work together to engrave a part of the combined attack formation on this carrier, such as this iron plate. Then, each person who sets up the formation must refine a piece of the iron plate and cultivate the corresponding formation on the iron plate. When setting up the formation, they need to inject their own strength into the iron plate and activate the corresponding formation on the iron plate at the same time. In this way, the iron plates can connect with each other and the combined attack formation can be successfully executed. Joint attack formations of the Divine Lord realm and above. The 1,000 gods. Of course it's troublesome. Otherwise, with the Heavenly Human Tribe's foundation, how could they not have a joint attack formation of the Divine Lord realm and above after excavating the ruins of the universe for so many years? It's just that the Heavenly Human Tribe hasn't excavated such a carrier. It's impossible for them to refine such a carrier. This refining technique is extremely difficult. No one can do it now. Of course, I'm not too sure about the creatures of the Forbidden Lands and the quasi-immortal tribe. Dandan said. You mean that the number of carriers can only allow a few people to set up the formation? There are 12 iron plates here, so it can only allow 12 people to set up the formation at most? Lu Ming asked. That's right. The number of carriers can only allow a few people to set up the formation at most. Of course, they can set up the formation if they don't have enough people. It's just that their power can't be maximized. For joint attack formations of the Divine Lord realm and above, the more carriers there are, the higher the level of the formation and the rarer it is. Of course, the difficulty of refining it is also higher. The lowest grade joint attack formation only has 2 carriers. Above it, there are 3, 4, 5, 9, 12, 36, 100, 1,000, all of them. There are 12 carriers here. That's not bad. It can allow 12 people to set up the formation and unleash shocking power. Dandan said. Through Dandan's explanation, Lu Ming and the others finally had a general understanding of joint attack formations of the Divine Lord realm and above. A joint attack formation with 12 carriers was not bad. At least it was enough for them to use. Lu Ming asked Dandan to put away the 12 iron plates so that they could study and cultivate it when they had time. Once they succeeded in cultivating it and the 10 of them set up the formation, their combat power would definitely increase tremendously. After Dandan put away the iron plates, they looked at the futon again. Unfortunately, although the futon looked intact, it turned into a cloud of dust when they tried to pick it up. Clearly, too much time had passed. The futon had decayed and turned into dust. They were slightly disappointed. In this cave abode, they only obtained a set of carriers for joint attack formations and a book that they could not understand. It was completely different from their expectations of obtaining a pile of supreme treasures. They could only say that dreams were not good. Reality was cruel. Dandan checked again. After making sure that there were no hidden doors, they left the place and continued descending rapidly toward the bottom of the crevice. Soon, they had descended more than a few thousand miles. After descending for a few thousand miles, they finally reached the bottom. As soon as they landed, they smelled a strong medicinal fragrance. The medicinal fragrance was too strong. It was as if many divine herbs had turned into liquid and were burrowing into their noses. Just the medicinal fragrance alone was enough to make them feel refreshed. Divine herbs? Ha! There's no cold and gloomy aura here. As expected, the divine herbs are here. Dandan was overjoyed. He quickly rushed in a direction. Lu Ming and the others followed closely behind. The further they went, the stronger the medicinal fragrance. Soon, they arrived at their destination. There were 9 divine herbs growing on a milky white rock. They were 9 divine ginsengs. Could this be a main-level divine herb? Sky Jade Ginseng? Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Dandan, Guimo, Tang Jun and the others all widened their eyes in shock. If it were just 9 stalks of main-level divine herbs, they wouldn't be so shocked. However, these 9 stalks of main-level divine herbs were too unique. Sky Jade Ginseng was a relatively precious main-level divine herb. Lu Ming and the others had seen it before. However, an ordinary Sky Jade Ginseng was only as thick as a thumb and less than a foot tall. However, the 9 Sky Jade Ginseng in front of them were a little frightening. They were as thick as a water bucket and each of them was more than 3 meters tall. They were like 9 huge trees. They were hundreds to thousands of times bigger than ordinary Sky Jade Ginseng. Moreover, everyone could feel that they contained an incomparably strong medicinal essence. It was unbelievably strong. What a strong medicinal essence. To think that a main-level divine herb could grow like this. The medicinal essence it contains is even stronger than an origin-level divine herb. How many chaos crystals is this Sky Jade Ginseng comparable to? Dandan stared at the Sky Jade Ginseng. He was almost drooling. He felt that a Sky Jade Ginseng was enough for his cultivation to break through. Chapter 48-31. Myriad Daos Dragon Emperor's luck is off the charts today. Please wait for a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 48-32. Let's dig it out first. Dig it out by the roots and transplant it into my ancient desolate ring to avoid losing its medicinal efficacy. Lu Ming said. Everyone nodded, took out their weapons and started digging. The 9 Sky Jade Ginsengs were rooted in the milky white rocks below. This kind of rock was very hard. Even Lu Ming and the others spent a lot of effort to dig out the 9 Sky Jade Ginsengs. Then, Lu Ming stored them in his ancient desolate ring and temporarily planted them there. There are ancient desolate crystals below. Dandan's eyes were sharp. He immediately found something. In fact, Lu Ming and the others also noticed that there were many ancient desolate crystals below the hole where they dug out the Sky Jade Ginsengs. These ancient desolate crystals were embedded in a kind of transparent rock. Let's remove the useless rocks around us, Guimo said. He held the purple gold battle axe and started to work. Lu Ming and the others also started to dig out the rocks. Soon, a layer of the surrounding rocks was removed. The scene below the rocks was also revealed. Ancient desolate crystals. They were all ancient desolate crystals. These ancient desolate crystals were wrapped in a kind of transparent rock. And this was only a corner. More parts were still covered by rocks. They finally understood why the 9 sky jade ginsengs grew so exaggeratedly. They were rooted in a large number of ancient desolate crystals. It was difficult for them not to grow exaggeratedly after absorbing the energy of the ancient desolate crystals all year round. However, it was strange that they didn't evolve into source-level divine herbs after absorbing such a huge amount of energy. Could this be a vein of ancient desolate crystals? Did we find a vein of ancient desolate crystals? Danden's eyes were burning. Let's continue to dig out the surrounding rocks and take away these ancient desolate crystals and transparent rocks. Lu Ming said. These transparent rocks were like ice cubes and the ancient desolate crystals were like rice grains. The rice grains were scattered and frozen in the ice cubes. It was too difficult and troublesome to dig out the rice grains from the ice cubes one by one. It was better to take away the whole ice cubes and slowly dig later. They had already been delayed for 3 days because of that cave abode. If they continued to delay, they were afraid that the people of the quasi-saint race and the celestial race would arrive and cause more unforeseen events. Everyone no longer hesitated. They went all out to excavate the surrounding rocks. Large amounts of rocks were removed, revealing even more transparent rocks and desolate crystals. Lu Ming, Danden, and the others' eyes grew brighter and brighter. How many desolate crystals would that be? In total, there were probably hundreds of millions of desolate crystals. Several 100 million desolate gems was definitely a huge sum. After all, back when he had plundered the illusory heavenly palace's treasury, he had only obtained 1 billion desolate gems. It was just that Lu Ming's cultivation was too monstrous and required too many great desolate crystals. That was why people felt that a few 100 million great desolate crystals were not much. This was not all. It took Lu Ming and the others a few days to remove most of the rocks in the area, revealing the entire vein. This was a vein of it looked like a huge dragon. From afar, it was transparent, and the great desolate crystals inside looked like stars. It was truly a spectacular sight. I'm afraid there's 1 billion desolate crystals inside. Danden swallowed his saliva. His eyes were incomparably fiery. I'm afraid there's really 1 billion desolate crystals. This is really shocking. Could it be that all the desolate crystals in this vein are gathered here? Tang Jun said. A vein containing 1 billion desolate crystals was already incomparably shocking. Moreover, this chi meridian shouldn't be very big. Otherwise, there wouldn't be no buildings on it. Therefore, they speculated that most of the desolate crystals in this vein might be gathered here. There's still some rocks left. Work harder to remove them all. Lu Ming shouted. At this time, not far from here, a group of people was heading towards this place. This group of people was the heavenly human race led by the Lord of Heaven, and the others. The Lord of Heaven, who was at the front, did not look too good. These days, they had been searching for treasures under the vein. They had some gains, but it was far less than they had expected. They had obtained a few stalks of main-grade divine herbs. They had obtained more than 20 million desolate crystals. Although it was not a small number, there were more than 2,000 of them. If it was divided, each person would not get much. There were so few treasures in a vein. There's a sound in front. There's someone. Suddenly, the Lord of Heaven's ears twitched. He heard a sound coming from ahead. It seemed to be the sound of a sharp weapon cutting rocks. Let's go take a look. The Lord of Heaven took the lead and flew forward with more than 2,000 heavenly human race people. And in front of them was where Lu Ming and the others were. Not long after, they arrived. Then they were all stunned. Their eyes widened as they stared at the vein of desolate crystals. Countless desolate crystals were shining so brightly that their eyes were almost blinded. Desolate crystals, they're all desolate crystals. So many. This is a real vein. There are so many of them. We're rich, we're rich. These desolate crystals are all ours. Many heavenly human race people shouted excitedly. Oh no, it's the heavenly human race. Danden, Wanshun, and the others' faces changed. There's only a little bit of rock left. Use all your strength to cut off the connection between the vein and the rock. I'll take the desolate crystals. Lu Ming hollered, activating the primordial ring with all his might. The primordial crystal produced a powerful suction force, enveloping the entire primordial crystal mineral vein within it. It pulled wildly, trying to collect the primordial crystal. There was another vein of desolate crystals that was connected to the rock. Bone Demon, Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon, Qiu, and the others pushed their strength to the limit and used their ultimate skills to attack the connection between the vein of desolate crystals and the rock. Boom, 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 boom. Rocks exploded and debris flew everywhere. Coupled with the powerful suction force of the desolate ring, the connection between the vein of desolate crystals and the rock was finally broken. The entire vein of desolate crystals trembled and then disappeared. Lu Ming kept it in the desolate ring. Lu Ming, it's you. Hand over the vein of desolate crystals. At this moment, the Heavenly Lord of Extermination and the rest finally noticed Lu Ming and the rest. All of them roared furiously and charged toward Lu Ming and the rest. Lu Ming shouted. His body flashed and appeared in front of them. The war god's spear became incomparably huge and swept out, stirring up a huge storm. At the same time, Bone Demon, Qiu, Xian Yanqing, and Autumn Moon appeared in front of them. They blocked Dandan, Qiu, Ling Yue, and the other weaker ones behind them and attacked respectively. Boom, boom, boom. Lu Ming and the others' attacks collided with the attacks of the heavenly human race. They blocked the attacks of the heavenly human race. The terrain here was not wide enough. It was difficult for the 2,000 heavenly human race to attack together. Just now, only a few hundred people attacked. Lu Ming and the others could block them easily. You're courting death. Bone Demon snorted. He ignored his defense and rushed toward the heavenly human race like a bolt of lightning. Chapter 48:33. Swish. An elderly strongest heaven monarch thrust out his golden battle spear and pierced the Bone Devil's body. However, the Bone Devil didn't take it seriously at all. Instead, the purple gold battle axe slashed at him. The old man was shocked and quickly stepped back. Swish. Guillermo took the opportunity to rush past them and slashed at them with his purple gold battle axe. Puff, puff, puff. More than a dozen heavenly human tribe experts were killed by the Bone Demon in a row. The death of more than 10 heavenly human experts finally extinguished their greed and calmed them down. Back off! The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation shouted and asked the heavenly human experts to back off. He, the Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles, the two old Lord of Heaven and the two primitive deity puppets worked together to kill Guillermo. Guillermo took one of their attacks and rushed out of the encirclement. He returned to Lu Ming and the others like a flash of lightning. The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation and the other 5 Lord of Heaven of Annihilation stood at the front, blocking the other heavenly human experts behind them to prevent Guillermo from killing them again. Lu Ming, hand over the desolate gem mine. You can't take so many desolate gems. The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation shouted. He was still thinking about the desolate gems. We found the desolate gems first. They should belong to us. Lu Ming said lightly. You chose the location yourselves. You chose a good location and we chose a bad one. Who would have thought that there would be a desolate gem mine below? But you didn't get anything, right? Dandan said sarcastically. You, the Lord of Heaven of Annihilation, was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. He never would have thought that the location that seemed to be relatively good at first would actually not have much to gain, and that the greatest gain would actually be here. When he thought of Lu Ming and the others coming here because of him, he was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. There are only 10 of you. You want to take so many desolate gems? Aren't you a bit too greedy? How about this? The 10 of you can keep 1/10 and the 2,000 of us can only take 9/10. How about that? The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation said. How about that? Is there something wrong with your head? Do you think that's possible? Let me tell you, you can forget about getting even one desolate gem. Dandan cursed. That's right. The strongest heavenly monarch of the heavenly human race only has this much brain. How pathetic. The Lord of 10,000 gods also. You are all courting death. Don't think that the 10 of you will be able to guard that many great desolate crystals. The heavenly lord of 100 battles shouted as his battle intent exploded. Do you want to fight? Chiu cried out and turned into a ball. 2 blades extended from both sides of it, and it continuously brandished them. Each slash tore through space. Hee, if you really want to fight to the death, how many of you out of the 2,000 people can survive? Bone Demon sneered. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing and Chiu Yu didn't say anything, but their energy was fully unleashed. They wanted to tell the other party that if they wanted to fight, they would fight. Many of the 2,000 heavenly human race members showed fear in their eyes. Damn it! The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation roared in his mind, but he didn't do anything. He was almost sure that Lu Ming couldn't unleash the power he had during the battle in the Heaven Destroyer base. But Lu Ming and the other 8 were still too powerful. Among the 10 of them, 5 of them were as powerful as the strongest Heaven Monarch. Although 6 of them were as powerful as the Lord of Heaven, they weren't confident at all. Just Gu Mo alone was able to hold back 2 of the strongest Heaven Monarchs by relying on his unparalleled defensive power. Lu Ming and Chiu were also very powerful when they cooperated. Although they had more people, the result was unpredictable if they really fought. Just as Bone Demon said, if they really fought to the death, how many of the 2,000 heavenly human race members could survive even if they could kill Lu Ming and the others? Humph, you don't know when to stop. Sooner or later, you'll die. Let's go. After a struggle in his mind, the Lord of Heaven of Annihilation finally decided to leave. He silently planned in his heart that it would not be too late to deal with Lu Ming and the rest after more heavenly human clan experts had gathered. Soon, the heavenly human race members left. Lu Ming and the others didn't chase after them, because they weren't confident. Besides, they didn't need to risk their lives to fight the heavenly human race. They had just obtained a set of combined arrays suitable for divine masters and a large number of primitive crystals that they hadn't had time to refine. After refining them, their strength would increase greatly. By then, they wouldn't have to worry about the heavenly human race anymore. After the heavenly human race members left, Lu Ming and the others continued to explore the area. Although they had obtained an entire primitive crystal vein, there might be other treasures in the area. Sure enough, not long after, they found some scattered primitive crystals. Although the number couldn't be compared to an entire vein, it was still a lot. Is there still no news from the immortal ancestral patriarch? After the heavenly human race members left, the Lord of Heaven of Annihilation asked with a ferocious look in his eyes. They had already informed the Yi Immortal and wanted the Yi Immortal to come and meet them. They could take advantage of Lu Ming and the others when Lu Ming and the others were weak. There were too many experts in Lu Ming's group, and most of them were peerless geniuses. If they could kill all of them, it would be a devastating blow to the Heaven Destroyer. Unfortunately, they hadn't received any response from the Yi Immortal during this period. No, the Ancestral Patriarch still hasn't responded. He must be too far away from us or in some special environment. An old Lord of Heaven of Annihilation answered. My lord, there are extreme Een corpses everywhere. Do you think the Ancestral Patriarch is in danger? A middle-aged Lord of Heaven of Annihilation asked worriedly. What nonsense are you talking about? With the immortal Ancestral Patriarch's strength and wisdom, how can these extreme Een corpses do anything to him? If we are fine, how can the Ancestral Patriarch be in danger? Just continue to transmit your voice. The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation scolded. Although he said so, he was actually a little worried in his heart. However, he couldn't say it out loud. No matter what, he had to show his trust in the Ancestral Patriarch. Otherwise, it would affect the morale of the army. This subordinate is stupid. How can the Ancestral Patriarch be in danger? The middle-aged Lord of Heaven of Annihilation immediately reacted and nodded repeatedly. We are also looking for treasures in this area. At the same time, we are monitoring Lu Ming and the others. When the Ancestral Patriarch and the others arrive, it will be the time of Lu Ming and the others' deaths. Those primitive crystals will be temporarily kept by them. Sooner or later, they will be ours. The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation said with murderous intent. While the heavenly human race, quasi-immortal race, and Lu Ming were searching under the Qi vein, an uninvited guest came to the side of this Qi vein. It was the primordial light race, the creatures of the forbidden land of the primordial divine mountain. There were about 400 people in the primordial light race, but each of them had a powerful aura. They were all terrifying experts. The leader was the purple-robed youth who fought with Lu Ming at the Heaven Destroyer's base. He was called the Ninth Young Master by the primordial light race. Chapter 48-34. More than 400 creatures from the primordial sacred mountain appeared above the cracks. Ninth Young Master, should we charge in immediately? It seems like those small fries have already entered. An old man beside Ninth Young Master said. This person had also been to the Heaven Destroyer's encampment and was extremely powerful. He was a King Realm battle envoy and had the combat strength of the strongest Lord of Heaven. Of course we have to charge in. Look at the location. These two cracks are the largest and the location is the best. They are already below these two cracks. Let's split up and charge in from these two locations. Ninth Young Master pointed at two locations. These two locations were where the heavenly human race and the quasi-sage race had entered previously. Just as the primordial light race was about to attack, several figures suddenly flew out from one of the cracks. They were from the quasi-sage race. Leading them was Song Qiong. They had been searching for a few days but didn't find much. Song Qiong planned to go out first and change to another location to search for treasures. But when they saw the primordial light race, their pupils suddenly shrank. I didn't expect them to come out before we could charge in. Well, let's send them on their way. Charge. Ninth Young Master said coldly. Although their numbers were much smaller than the immortal race, they didn't put the quasi-sage race in their eyes. Swish. 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 Over 200 primordial light race immediately charged towards the quasi-sage race. Their light beam hair fluttered like extremely sharp swords, piercing through the void and stabbing towards the quasi-sage race. Every primordial light race member had over 1,000 light beam hair. When over 200 primordial light race members attacked together, it was as if over 200,000 battle swords had appeared in the void. They were densely packed and filled the void, enveloping all the quasi-sage race members. It was extremely terrifying. Attack! Song Qiong shouted and attacked with his strongest attack. The other quasi-sage race members also attacked with all their strength. The quasi-sage race members were also very powerful. The mark between their eyebrows glowed and they attacked with terrifying heat. When thousands of people attacked together, it was as if even space and time were about to burn. They blocked the attacks of the primordial light race in an instant. There are many experts. There's even a King Realm battle envoy. Ninth Young Master looked at a robust man beside Song Qiong. Leave this person to me. There was also a peerless fighter by Jiao Gongzi's side. It was the Guangqian emissary, who had fought Gu Changfeng to a drawback at the Heaven Destroyer base. This Guangqian royal envoy directly ascended to the heavens, and at the edge of the heavens that peerless master similarly, he also charged out. The two peerless experts clashed together, unleashing a world-shaking battle. At the same time, the others were also engaged in close combat. In the quasi-immortal race, an existence comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven. Including Firmament, there were 9 of them. However, the primordial light race had plenty of such experts. Although only 200 people had been dispatched, there were actually 10 experts of this level. In addition, it was equivalent to a top-level Lord of Heaven or a peak-level Divine Master. There were even more. Therefore, although the Yuan Guang clan has a small population, but for a moment, he actually managed to gain the upper hand. Yes, I want to leave. Suddenly, Ninth Young Master looked in another direction. That was the direction where the heavenly human race had entered. The Extermination Lord of Heaven and the others had already explored the meridian but did not find anything. They had originally planned to come to the surface to monitor Lu Ming and the others while waiting for the Yi Immortal. They had not expected to see the battle between the primordial light race and the quasi-immortal race as soon as they appeared. They were almost scared to death and hurriedly retreated into the crack. Spread the word that I have been using recently. me read a /e/a/d/c Android and Apple phones supported. Unfortunately, no one from the primordial light race had discovered it. The rest of you follow me. Ninth young master ordered. The remaining 200 people from the primordial light race followed Ninth young master and charged toward the heavenly human race. The primordial light race was extremely fast. Like streaks of light, they charged into the crack where the heavenly human race was and chased after them. There were more than 2,000 people from the heavenly human race, and their cultivation levels varied. Some of them were very slow, which affected their overall speed. Soon, the primordial light race caught up with them. Whoosh whoosh whoosh's hair was like a sharp sword that pierced toward the heavenly human tribe. Block it! The Lord of Heaven roared. Since they had caught up to him, he could only fight. The Lord of Heaven the Exterminator, the Lord of Heaven the 100 Battles, and the other strongest lords of heaven charged to the front and sent the beams of light flying back. 6 existences comparable to battle envoys. Interesting. Ninth young master's lips curled up in a cold smile as a startling murderous intent filled his eyes. Before entering the Purple Heaven Cave, the creatures of the 3 forbidden lands had reached a consensus to eliminate the original creatures of the universe. In the eyes of the creatures of the forbidden lands, the original creatures of the universe, such as the celestial race, the quasi-immortal race, the fiend race, and the heaven destroyer, were in the way. Unless they were willing to be their slaves, they had to be eliminated. Therefore, when they saw the celestial race and the quasi-saint race, they immediately attacked. Bunjio Gongzi stepped out, and a vast aura burst out, pressing towards the heavenly human tribe. The experts beside Jianghu also burst out with their auras and stepped out. What a terrifying aura! There are at least 7 existences at the level of the Lord of Heaven, or even more. The Lord of Heaven the Exterminator's face turned pale. In fact, it was very difficult to determine whether they were at the level of the Lord of Heaven based on their auras. Because the cultivation of the Lord of Heaven was also at the peak of the Divine Master realm. They were not strong in terms of cultivation, but in terms of combat power. Only by fighting could one determine their strength. The Lord of Heaven the Exterminator was at the level of the Lord of Heaven, so he was very sensitive to experts at this level. Based on his experience, he determined that there were at least 7 existences at the same level as him in the primordial light race. This was only his judgment. Perhaps, there were still some that he could not judge. In other words, there were at least 7 existences at the level of the Lord of Heaven in the primordial light race. However, there were only 6 of them. Although they had more people, it was useless against an existence at the level of the Lord of Heaven, unless they were all at the level of the Lord of Heaven. If they had more people, they might be able to hold back the Lord of Heaven. However, they did not have many top-level experts at the level of the Lord of Heaven. There were so many top-level experts in the primordial light race. What should I do? The Lord of Heaven the Exterminator's mind raced as he tried to think of a countermeasure. In an instant, dozens of ideas flashed through his mind. That's right. Suddenly, the Lord of Heaven the Exterminator's eyes lit up. He had thought of a countermeasure. Lu Ming. That's right, it was Lu Ming. He had naturally heard about the feud between the primordial light race, the Heaven Destroyer, and Lu Ming. He had also heard about the unusual battle between Lu Ming and the 9th young master of the primordial light race. I know where Lu Ming is. Heaven Destroyer's Lu Ming. The Lord of Heaven the Exterminator roared. Lu Ming. The 9th young master of the primordial light race's eyes flashed with killing intent. Chapter 48:35. The 9th young master of the primordial light race hated Lu Ming very much. He wanted to kill Lu Ming at all times. Back at the Heaven Destroyer station, Lu Ming had not only disobeyed him, but he had also defeated him in the end. Being defeated by an 8th-layer divine master in front of his subordinates was a great blow to his prestige. Hence, he wanted to kill Lu Ming at all times. Back in the universe ruins, for the sake of the big picture, he had endured and not made a move. Originally, he wanted to kill Lu Ming after entering the Purple Heaven Cave. Unfortunately, He had not met Lu Ming after entering the Purple Heaven Cave. Now that he heard about Lu Ming, his killing intent was completely aroused. The ninth young master stopped and said coldly, "Speak. Where is Lu Ming? You have to let us go after I tell you." The extermination lord of heaven shouted. "You have no right to negotiate with me. Speak. Otherwise die." The ninth young master was very domineering. He did not care about the Lord of Heaven's conditions at all. "If you don't agree to my conditions, don't expect me to tell you." The extermination Lord of Heaven said. "You want to threaten me with this? How naive." The ninth young master was very decisive. He waved his hand. Boom, boom. The expert beside him stepped forward again, shaking the void. His light hair danced, and his aura was oppressive. "Damn it!" The extermination Lord of Heaven roared in his heart. He knew that it would be impossible to get rid of the primordial light race easily. However, he had to tell them about Lu Ming's whereabouts. If he told them about Lu Ming's whereabouts, the primordial light race would most likely send people to kill Lu Ming. That would also reduce the pressure on the ninth young master. Lu Ming is in another direction. Follow this crack and you will find him. The extermination Lord of Heaven shouted and pointed in a direction. The ninth young master's eyes flashed. How could he not know the intention to exterminate the Lord of Heaven? However, he was even more eager to kill Lu Ming. "All of you stop them. The rest of you follow me." Jiao Gongzi assigned his men and ordered 5 of them who were as powerful as the Lord of Heaven, as well as more than 100 others from the primordial light race to stay behind. He wanted them to hold back the celestial race's men. He personally led the remaining people towards Lu Ming's location. He didn't want to waste any more time. He was afraid that Lu Ming would escape. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The ninth young master led more than 90 Origin Light tribesmen and charged towards Lu Ming's location. Their speed was extremely fast. Before long, they had reached Lu Ming's location. Full force breakthrough. After ninth young master led his men away, the exterminating Lord of Heaven roared and led his men to break out of the encirclement. This was a rare opportunity. The Origin Light race only had 5 powerful Lord of Heaven left, while the Jiao Gongzi had 6 of them. This was a good opportunity for them to break through. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to escape when the ninth young master returned. However, even though the Origin Light race only had about 100 people left, it wasn't easy for them to break out of the encirclement. The light beams of the Origin Light race danced in the wind and intertwined with each other. They formed an inescapable net that sealed off the surrounding void. Kill! The exterminating Lord of Heaven, the Lord of Heaven of 100 battles, and the 2 old and powerful Lord of Heaven of 100 battles worked together. The 2 primitive godly spirit puppets were like a sharp knife as they attacked fiercely in a certain direction. When the 6 powerful Lord of Heaven worked together, their power was terrifying. The light beams in that direction kept exploding. In the end, the 5 battle envoys of the Origin Light race worked together to stop them. However, they were still defeated. Of course, the Origin Light race was at a disadvantage when it was 5 against 6. Set up the formation. At this moment, one of the Origin Light race's battle envoys gave the order. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Suddenly, 7 of the Origin Light race's elites moved in a flash. A shining armor appeared on their bodies at the same time. The armor was covered with runes. These runes shone brightly and a mysterious aura spread out. The aura of the 7 Origin Light race elites gathered together. Boom! Powerful energy spread out from the 7 Origin Light race elites and intertwined with each other to form a giant. Among the 7 of them, 5 of them had 4 limbs and a head. The other 2 were torsos. They formed a giant out of energy and its aura was terrifying. Boom! The giant wielded a battle sword and slashed at the exterminating Lord of Heaven and the others. It collided with the exterminating Lord of Heaven of exterminating, and both sides were pushed back. They were evenly matched. A combined attack formation. A Divine Lord level combined attack formation. The exterminating Lord of Heaven of exterminating shouted in shock. Although the heavenly human tribe did not have a combined attack formation above the Divine Lord level, he had heard of it before. Therefore, he recognized it at a glance. Yes, This was a Divine Lord-level combined attack formation. The armor on the 7 Origin Light Race elites was the carrier of the combined attack formation. Among the 7 Origin Light Race elites, 4 of them were peak Divine Lords. The other 3 were only 9th-level Divine Lords. However, when the 7 of them set up the combined attack formation, their combat strength was comparable to that of the strongest Lord of Heaven. This was the power of a combined attack formation. Without the combined attack array, the combined forces of the 4 ordinary peak stage Divine Masters and 3 9th stage Divine Masters would be no match for the strongest Heavenly Lord, no matter how powerful the primordial light race was and how much stronger they were than the heavenly human race. To put it bluntly, they would not be able to cause any harm to the strongest Lord of Heaven. They would be easily defeated. However, once the combined attack formation was set up, they would be comparable to that of the strongest Lord of Heaven. However, this was not the end of it. The other 7 members of the Primordial Light clan also flickered as armor similar to the previous 7 appeared on their bodies. Another 7 Origin Light Race elites set up a combined attack formation. 5 of them were the 4 limbs and the head, while the other 2 were the torso. They formed a giant. This combined attack formation was exactly the same as the one set up by the 7 Origin Light Race elites. In this way, the Origin Light Race would have 2 more Lord of Heaven's combat strength. Their top combat strength had already surpassed that of the Heavenly Human Tribe. It was no wonder that the 9th Young Master had allowed the Origin Light Race elites to stall the Heavenly Human Tribe, even though the Origin Light Race's combat strength was inferior to the Heavenly Human Tribe's. This was the reason. Boom, 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 boom. The Heavenly Human Tribe elite's momentum was blocked and they could not charge out. Damn it. The exterminating Lord of Heaven of Exterminating roared. His expression was extremely ugly. In the universe, there had never been a combined attack formation above the Divine Master realm. Therefore, he had overlooked this possibility from the beginning. He did not expect that there would be a Divine Master Realm combined attack formation among the creatures of the Forbidden Grounds. This had put them in a passive position. If this continued, they would not be able to break out. When the other Origin Light Race elites returned, they would all be killed. Explode! Let the primitive Divine Spirit explode. Suddenly, the exterminating Lord of Heaven of Exterminating roared. Of course, he was transmitting his voice to the Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles and the other Lords of Heaven. Let the primitive Divine Spirit puppet explode. This puppet is comparable to that of the strongest Lord of Heaven. The Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles widened his eyes. The Heavenly Human Tribe had spent a lot of effort to create such a puppet. It would be a pity if it exploded just like that. Now is not the time to hesitate. If it doesn't explode, we will all die. The Lord of Heaven of Exterminating said. Chapter 48:36. In the end, the Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles and the others agreed. The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation was right. Although the primitive godly spirit puppet was extremely precious, could it compare to them? To put it bluntly, the primitive godly spirit puppet was just an experiment by the Heavenly Human Tribe. It was an experiment that used the powerful primitive godly spirit as the foundation and fused with various powerful forces. In the end, it was just a puppet and would be difficult to improve in the future. On the other hand, they had unlimited potential. Their value was completely different. Even if the Immortal knew about it, he would not blame them. In the end, they decided to let one of the primitive godly spirit puppets self-destruct. Boom. The primitive godly spirit puppet's body rapidly grew until it was 1,000,000 feet tall. It stood upright and charged in a direction, completely ignoring its defense and attacking with all its might. Suddenly, the primitive godly spirit puppet's body was pierced by beams of light and hair. However, the primitive godly spirit puppet did not stop at all. It continued to charge forward, emitting terrifying waves of energy from its body. It's going to self-destruct. Stop it. A Lower King War envoy from the Primordial Light tribe shouted. He and the other Lower King War envoys, as well as 2 other 7-man war envoys, attacked the primitive godly spirit puppet crazily. They wanted to kill it before it self-destructed. However, it was just a puppet. Moreover, its vitality and defense were extremely strong. It was extremely difficult to kill it quickly. Although the primitive godly spirit puppet's head, one of its arms, and one of its legs had been cut off, its self-destruction did not slow down. Its aura was getting stronger and stronger. It emitted a dazzling light like the brightest star. Not good. Retreat! 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 The primordial light tribe shouted. They knew that they could not stop it, so they quickly retreated. The primordial light tribe retreated very quickly, but some people were still one step too slow. Boom! An earth-shattering roar? That primordial godly spirit puppet, which was comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven, had exploded and created a terrifying destructive power. It swept in all directions. More than 10 primordial light tribe members were swept in. They were smashed into pieces. However, the primordial light tribe had 5 lower king war envoys and 2 war envoys with 7 war envoys. They avoided the center of the self-destruction. However, when they were hit by the powerful destructive force, primordial light tribe members, their bodies shook violently and they almost vomited blood. The siege of the heavenly human tribe by the primordial light race? A huge gap was forcibly created. Go! Exterminate the Lord of Heaven. Was he the first to break out of the encirclement? The other heavenly human tribe powerful beings followed closely behind? Did they all rush out of the gap? Then he flew into the distance. Chase. Don't let them escape? Send 9th young master a voice transmission. The primordial light clan members roared and chased after the heavenly human clan members. Let's go to that ancient city. The Lord of Heaven of Extermination shouted. The walls of the ancient city could greatly suppress the extreme Een corpse, but against the primordial light race? Most likely it would be useless. But the walls of the ancient city? There were still some broken formations left behind. Dealing with the absolute Een corpse? You don't need these broken arrays. However, it would be useful against the Yuan Guang clan. As long as he could activate the remaining formation, he should be able to stop the primordial light tribe. People from the celestial race and quasi-saint race? They had already studied the broken formations on the ancient city as a precaution. In the end, they confirmed that there were some broken formations on the ancient city that they could activate and activate. The Lord of Heaven of Extermination's goal was very simple. He wanted to return to the ancient city and rely on the broken formations to stop the Yuan Guang clan. It was too dangerous to run to other places. Once he encountered the extreme Een corpse or other creatures of the forbidden area, he would be in danger. Defending the ancient city and waiting for reinforcements was the best plan. On the other side, the quasi-saint race had also rushed out of the encirclement. Based on their apparent strength, it would be very difficult for the quasi-saint race to break out of the encirclement of the Yuan Guang clan. However, the quasi-saint race had also mastered a joint attack formation of the Divine Lord realm. They had a 9-person joint attack formation carrier that could allow 9 peak Divine Lord realm existences to join forces to set up the formation. Its power was very shocking. When it was used, it could fight against several powerful existences at the level of the Lord of Heaven. In the end, they relied on this formation to break out of the encirclement and led the quasi-saint race toward the ancient city. They had the same idea as the heavenly human race. They planned to use the broken formations of the ancient city to resist the Yuan Guang clan. While the heavenly human race and quasi-saint race were fighting against the Yuan Guang clan, the 9th young master led more than 90 Yuan Guang clan experts to find Lu Ming and the others. It's the creatures of the forbidden area of the Yuan-Ji Holy Mountain. Lu Ming and the others' expressions changed when they saw the 9th young master and the others. They had not expected to encounter creatures of the forbidden area in the realm aura. Brat, you are indeed here. Very good, very good. How dare you offend me? Today will be the day you die. Kill them. The 9th young master roared. His aura erupted as he led more than 90 Yuan Guang clan experts to attack Lu Ming and the others. Light beams filled the sky and pierced through the void. It was extremely terrifying. It's just the 4 strongest Lord of Heaven. How naive of you to think that you can kill us. Gu Mo sneered. As soon as the other party attacked, Gu Mo sensed with his sharp intuition that there were only 4 Lord of Heaven level experts among them. They had 5 of the strongest Heaven Monarch Realm experts. Be careful. They are setting up a formation. It's a joint attack formation of the Divine Master Realm. Dandan suddenly shouted. Indeed, as the Yuan Guang clan rushed toward Lu Ming and the others, some of their figures flickered and began to set up a formation. There were 2 groups of people in total. One group consisted of 7 people. A set of armor appeared on each of their bodies. The armor was full of runes. Among the 7 people, 5 of them had 4 limbs and a head. 2 of them had a torso. They formed a giant with a battle sword in their hands. This joint attack formation was exactly the same as the one set up against the heavenly human race. The other group was even more shocking. There were 9 people setting up a formation. Each of the 9 people held a battle sword covered with runes. These battle swords were the carrier of the joint attack formation. Their auras were connected. The 9 of them joined together and formed a giant battle sword. It was extremely terrifying. It slashed toward Lu Ming and the others. Its speed was faster than the others, and it was the first to approach Lu Ming and the others. Gu Mo rushed forward and swung his purple-gold battle axe. He slashed down and hit the giant battle sword. With a loud boom, Gu Mo's body shook violently. Then, like a cannonball, he was sent flying backward. Lu Ming and the others' hearts sank. The battle sword was able to send Gu Mo flying with one blow. Its power was shocking. It was obviously beyond the strength of the Lord of Heaven. Fortunately, Gu Mo's defense was shockingly strong. There was no need to worry about him. Oh no, this joint attack formation is set up by 9 peak divine masters. It's too powerful. We can't stop it. Retreat. Dandan exclaimed. Let's go. Lu Ming also shouted. These creatures of the Forbidden Land had mastered a joint attack formation of the Divine Master Realm. They were no match for them. Now, there were only 7 and 9 people setting up the formation. Who knew if there were any more advanced joint attack formations? Lu Ming and the others quickly retreated. You want to leave? Today, none of you will leave. Jiao Gongzi shouted coldly. Chapter 48-37. Jiao Gongzi was filled with murderous intent as he charged toward Lu Ming and the others. The battle saber formed by the 9 people's joint attack was too fast. It continued to slash toward Lu Ming and the others. Before the saber slashed down, the terrifying saber aura had already caused Lu Ming and the others to feel pain on their skin. It was as if they had been cut by a small knife. Dandan, is there any way to break their joint attack formation? Lu Ming sent a voice transmission to Dandan at an extremely fast speed. No. The joint attack formation of the Divine Master Realm and above uses the carrier as its foundation. It is extremely difficult to break. Unless you have an extremely strong combat strength to shatter their carrier, Dandan replied. Lu Ming was speechless. If they wanted to break the formation, they would have to have a combat strength that far exceeded their opponents. However, if they had such combat strength, they would be able to tear the formation apart directly. Why would they need to break the formation's carrier? Buzz. The battle god spear in Lu Ming's hand vibrated as he planned to take the attack head-on. Lu Ming, leave it to me. Qiu flew out and turned into a suit of armor that blocked the attack of the saber. Clang. There was an earth-shattering explosion. Qiu's armor shook violently and twisted continuously. In the end, it retreated like a bone demon. However, it still managed to block the attack in the end. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing and the others took the opportunity to retreat. Space-time vortex. Sky demon field. As they retreated, Qiu unleashed the space-time power to the maximum. The power of time and space spun wildly and formed a huge vortex that tried to pull the people of the primordial light tribe into it. At the same time, Xian Yanqing also unleashed the sky demon field to disrupt the people of the primordial light tribe. This was undoubtedly effective. The speed of the people of the primordial light tribe was somewhat affected. Lu Ming and the others took the opportunity to fly a long distance away. Dandan had already transformed into his original form. His turtle shell glowed. As he flew, numerous runes flew out of it and disappeared into the void. Chase after them? Chase after them. Don't let them escape. Jiao Gongzi roared. He led his men in hot pursuit. Lu Ming and the others quickly met up with Bone Demon and Qiu and flew in the same direction. The direction in which they were flying? It was the same ancient city from before. In that ancient city, there were many incomplete formations. With Dandan's understanding of formations, she was able to activate many of them. Behind? Was the Primordial Light clan chasing after them? But while Dandan was flying, setting up an array on the side, disrupting the Primordial Light race along the way, Bubbles and Xian Yanqing at the same time. Using the space-time power and the heavenly demon domain to disrupt their opponents, it would be very difficult for the Primordial Light tribe to catch up to Lu Ming and the others in a short time. Not long after that ancient city, it was already in sight. Was it the celestial race and the quasi-immortal race? They actually fled back here. Far away, Lu Ming and the others saw the people from the celestial race and the quasi-sage race. The people from the celestial race and the quasi-sage race were holding divine weapons with blue firestones and charging towards the ancient city. This was because there were still some extreme Een corpses around the ancient city. These extreme Een corpses kept charging towards the quasi-sage race, the celestial race, and the primordial light race. The celestial race and the quasi-sage race had divine weapons with blue firestones, so it was easy for them to deal with the extreme Een corpses. They easily opened up a path and quickly approached the ancient city. What surprised Lu Ming and the others was the primordial light race. The primordial light race could actually deal with the extreme Een corpses, and it didn't seem to be very difficult. The primordial light race's light beam hair fluttered in the wind and vibrated at a special frequency. When it pierced towards the extreme Een corpse, it easily pierced through the extreme Een corpse's body. The extreme Een corpse's body was covered with a thick layer of black gas, which made the extreme Een corpse's defense extremely shocking. Lu Ming and the others had a deep understanding of this. However, the people from the primordial light race could easily pierce through the extreme Een corpse's defense. The powerful extreme Een corpses were fine, but some of the weaker primordial light race members could also easily pierce through the extreme Een corpse's defense. This made Lu Ming and the others very surprised. They seemed to know the extreme Een corpse's weakness very well. Moreover, the black gas on the extreme Een corpse's body doesn't seem to have a strong defense against the primordial light race's power. Tang Jun said softly. Lu Ming nodded. He had also noticed this. It was no wonder that the primordial light race didn't seem to be afraid of the extreme Een corpse even though they didn't have blue firestones. Could the extreme Een corpse be related to the living beings in the Forbidden Grounds? Otherwise, why would it be like this? Lu Ming's mind raced, but he couldn't figure it out. However, the blue firestones were still more effective against the extreme Een corpse. Therefore, the people from the celestial race and the quasi-sage race advanced even faster. Charge! Lu Ming and the others also rushed toward the ancient city. Naturally, some extreme Een corpses also rushed toward Lu Ming and the others. However, there were also some extreme Een corpses that rushed toward Jianghu and the others. Disgusting corpses refined by the extreme Een tribe. Get lost! Jianghu shouted coldly. His light beam hair danced in the wind and pierced through the bodies of a few extreme Een corpses. The other primordial light race members also attacked with all their might. However, they weren't as fast as Lu Ming and the others. The extreme Een corpses here weren't particularly strong. This was because the strong ones had already been killed by them when they left. Therefore, Lu Ming and the others were extremely fast. The extreme Een corpses in front of them were either killed or sent flying. Just as the quasi-sage race and the celestial race rushed into the ancient city, Lu Ming and the others also approached the ancient city. Quick, activate the array. Don't let the primordial light race members in. The exterminating Lord of Heaven shouted. When he looked at Lu Ming and the others, his eyes flashed with killing intent. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Those from the celestial race and the quasi-sage race who knew array formations started to activate the array formations on the ancient city with all their might. Those who didn't know array formations kept launching long-range attacks to stop the primordial light race members. Fortunately, they had already studied the array formations on the ancient city. Therefore, it wasn't too difficult to activate them. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Suddenly, the ancient city lit up. Runes filled the air and the array formations were activated one after another. Many of them were defensive array formations. They formed layers of light shields that enveloped the ancient city. Of course, some of them were offensive array formations as well. Go over there and activate the array formations. The primordial light race members are coming in. The exterminating Lord of Heaven pointed in a direction and shouted. His eyes flashed with cold light. Because that direction was the direction that Lu Ming and the others were coming from. Lu Ming and the others hadn't entered the city yet, but the Lord of Heaven wanted to activate the array formations. Obviously, he wanted to take the opportunity to stop Lu Ming and the others outside. Immediately, a few celestial race experts who were proficient in array formations rushed over there and activated the array formations on the city walls. Buzz buzz. Runes filled the city walls and several defensive array formations appeared. Damn it. These guys want to stop us outside. The myriad gods roared in anger. They want to stop us outside? With me here, they are too naive. Dandan said. The turtle shell lit up and an array formation flew out from Dandan's turtle shell. It enlarged and flew onto the defensive array formations. The defensive array formations immediately trembled and caved in. A gap appeared. Lu Ming and the others rushed in through the gap.